tonight.
We have got three incredibly exciting games coming from two of the top teams from both the Collegiate League over in America as well as over here, our home turf, TheNUEL. We've got literally some of the best teams playing for us, and I honestly can't wait to get into these special showcase matches to bring the two communities together.
Yeah, the Northeastern University squad representing the Collegiate Star League, and then the Sheffield of Ruin from the University of Sheffield representing the National University Esports League from the UK. So we're going to be having three best of three matches. Who's first up between our two squads?
So our first matchup is going to be Mind Sculpting Ostrich versus JDAP. Both of them are playing red-based decks, and I can't wait to get more into that matchup overall. But I don't want to take it too far, because I don't want to go too far into it all. Because I'm so excited to start covering all of these matches. It feels so long. It feels so long since we did anything Magic-related counterfeit, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. So I know we're we're talking to a UK and a US audience at the same time. So welcome to all of you guys who may never have seen us before. We do have, we had our previous season where we narrowed down our teams to the top 32. And from next week onwards, we're going to be, getting into that second half of the season, leading into our live event. But of course, the American side of things as well. From what I've been told, it's going to be broadcast happening on the Magic the Gathering side. So do make sure that you keep an eye on their Twitch page over there for more Magic. Unfortunately, probably not from us, but from our American colleagues, as I believe we might be getting closer and closer to our first game.
So that first matchup is truly an exciting one. We've got Mono Red from Mind Sculpting Ostrich to face off against JDAP playing Is It Flash? And this is going to truly be a very exciting one. Which of the red decks, is the blue splash relevant, or is it going to be good enough to actually kind of fend off the mono red Titan that has become the mainstay of the format? Honestly, it's truly one of the best decks of this format.
So, I mean, you say mono red, we have got a few different kind of variations on that same aggressive idea. Of course, we know red, especially mono red, loves to punch things in the face. But from the side of Mind Sculpting Ostrich representing the USA, what particular angle have they taken with their deck?
So it's a really interesting take on this list, honestly. So they've decided to go, instead of the play Annex, because brand new card, very strong. Annex the Harden in the Forge obviously gains power equal to your devotion to red. Obviously, when it or another creature you control dies, you get a 1/1. If this creature was 4 or more power, you get 2 extra 1/1 satyrs. That these satyrs come in Fallen, but the big takeaway that Mind Sculpting Ostrich decided to do is play 2 Phoenix of Ash, as well as playing 4, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 Infiltrate. And Infiltrate was a card that only we saw a few teams from the UK use. Normally, they were trying to use maybe flex of 2 red decks we saw from the Brunel team. We saw a few of these other teams maybe playing heavy mono red, but maybe splash a little bit of black in there and using Infiltrate to really help go over the top and basically never allowed trading to happen. I really like this. The other thing they decided to do is go for the full 12 package of 1-drops. This is playing Fervent Champion, Scorch Scutter, and Tin Street Dodger. This is a deck that wants to hurt you and wants to hurt you fast.
So I believe we're just about to get that first game. So up against that mono red with all these 1-drops, Looting How, bring out the Is It Flash. You mentioned has the red in there as well, but also the blue, a very, very different deck.
Yes, this is incredibly different. This is a tempo deck. This is a deck that very much wants to kind of play on the back foot, but at the same time be aggressive. They want to be continuously applying pressure, but at the same time preventing you from doing their things. They play cards such as Essence Capture, which counters a creature spell rather, and then you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. They play 4 negates. They're playing Quench. They're playing Idonize. So many cards which are just very good at playing in both scenarios of on the play and draw.
All right, guys, let's head into the first of our best of 3s this evening. Remember, it is 3 games. Of course, we're fighting for pride here, but we will play all 3. It's not strictly a best of 3, as we do see a mulligan happening straight away for Looting How. We can see they've got a lot of land, but not too much else to play with.
Yeah, this is just a hand you have to mulligan. You know you're against a very aggressive mono red deck. It becomes very difficult. Going down to 5 hurts. Going down to 6. Oh, 6 cards does hurt, but it's sometimes what you just got to do. But that's huge by Mind Sculpting Ostrich just not having a 1-drop. I said they play in 12 1-drops. They want to attack. They want to have all of the cards, but they didn't.
Yes, it's going to be the runaway Steam King coming down. Will at least allow him to start ramping up that mana as the Spectral Sailor comes out in response. We do see one of those tools that Looting Howe has got for slowing this game down, though, that Brazen Borrow in hand to bounce back something of the Ostriches.
Now, I'm interested in the kind of direction. So something that becomes very interesting when you're playing the blue-red deck versus a mono-red deck is picking the correct time when to counter certain spells, when to know not to counter, to play a tempo game or to maybe play more of a controlling game. And it's this axis that's going to be very difficult. And it's going to be very interesting how both the players moving forward obviously respect that the blue-red flash deck can just do as they're doing right now. Bouncing the exact creature that they just played this turn, virtually almost acting as a counter magic, except obviously Steam King getting that 1/1 counter.
All right, so there we go. The buying of a turn, but yes, the Steam King will work its way up to be able to buy later on. Note that we are now on the 3rd turn for Looting Howe. They've got 3 mana left open, and they have got their first of their counter spells, or the option of going for the Brineborn Cutthroat, maybe even a Brazen Borrower.
Yeah, I mean, Mind Sculpting Ostrich has to assume that Looting Howe has some form of counter magic. We obviously know he does, but he has to assume there is some form of counter magic. So I really like kind of going for the exact same kind of play that they did. They've got Annex and they've got Fervent Champion. They know they can get this Steam Kin online. They just need to keep punching. I really like the idea of playing very aggressive, throw everything out there as fast as possible, try and get Looting Howe on a back foot as fast as possible, and then having to start using these infiltrates he's got in hand.
We do see Annex coming down. That is a big, big target to take away. And while the runaway Steam King will still get the counter, will keep on swinging through. That's a big one to take out of the hand. We know that Mind Sculpting, while having the Fervent Champion, has only got those 2 Infuriates left in hand.
So obviously this is just a straightforward spot where he can just attack through, go through, doesn't matter, hit as much damage as possible, and then figure everything out in a few more turns later.
All right, so we know from the side of Looting Howe, we've still got the Brineborn Cutthroat and Spectral Sailor. There's another Brazen Warrior, a great way to get rid of that Stinking back to hand and strip away all the counters. Scryland comes down. Looks like no more land is required right now. The hand for Looting Howe has remained pretty cheap throughout this, so to be able to play pretty much everything they wanted to.
Yeah, they've been able to just kind of do exactly what they've needed to do. Obviously, losing that Annex is pretty bad, and having a Steam Kin on 3 counters and just not really having much to do with it does actually become very frustrating. And then obviously having to play a Temple of Epiphany for the last turn is just kind of the worst spot to ever be in. You want to have all your mana open, especially in these earlier turns of the game. It's looking very, very difficult for Looting Howe to actually have opportunities to really come back into this game. It's actually surprisingly far behind for the player.
The shot comes out to clear out the board and allow the clean attack in. Of course, we know the Brineborn Cutthroat is still in hand, and that shot was one of Ostrich's way of getting rid of those Cutthroats before they start to grow.
Yeah, a really important thing to note is Ostrich is only playing 4 shocks in his deck as his only form of main deck removal. So seeing one of those 4 is hugely relevant. No lightning strikes, no nothing else. It's purely on that shock. So seeing something like that with the Embercleave still in deck, Looting Howe has to know that there is just so many threats that can just come off the top of the deck and kind of close the door so very quickly.
Well, you mentioned the Embercleave, of course. One of the reasons why I suspect that we've seen Looting Howe holding onto that Brazen Borrower in hand, one of the few ways you can stop that Embercleave coming in and ending the game straight away.
Yeah, obviously you can choose to either Endercleave the creature itself or the Embercleave. I always prefer, especially against mono red decks, normally in the earlier turns to always Embercleave the creature. But as now Ostrich has far too much land or far too much mana at their disposal. They don't need to worry too much about what they need to play, how they play their cards. Basically, they've got the mana. They just need to make sure they sequence it in the correct order.
We can see that Ostrich has drawn another shot, but they know almost certainly if they were to play that on the Cutthroat, it would immediately get some kind of spell to boost it out of kill range. It looks like it's just going to be the full force attack. Spectral Sailor, will it block here? Or will it be another one let through?
I really don't like them tanking on that, personally. I actually would have just drawn almost nothing in your deck outside of Embercleave, which you can still play at flash speed. There's no reason to actually not play anything. You should just attack immediately, not give that information to the opponent. You have a double infiltrate, so you're actually fine with almost anything that the opponent does. So you should just withhold that information that you potentially have drawn something. It could be a double bluff, I get it, but I don't like the tank for the sake of tanking reasons.
Yeah, the Brineborn Cutthroat will get the extra 1/1, but this is first strike damage coming in, now pumped up by that Infuriate. This is going to be tempting to go for the Brazen Borrower here to keep the Cutthroat alive, and I think that's what's going to happen, which means the door is open for that big old Embercleave turn down the line.
Yeah, I mean, Cutthroat, rather, Brainborn Cutthroat. Ugh. God, some of these card names have so many syllables in it, it becomes very hard. Very Cutthroat, before we went live, me and Counterfeit were actually talking about key cards, and I said to Counterfeit, Cutthroat is going to be how the Izzet Flash deck really stays into this, because they can build such a large creature very quickly. Shocks can't actually kill them, meaning that obviously you can kind of play very aggressive blocks and counters and all this other stuff, and then hope that potentially it's enough. Obviously, Ostrich has another Infiltrate and a Shock in hand, so this Cutthroat still isn't big enough.
That's a nice draw there with the Opt and the two Brazen Borrowers. So does the Cutthroat attack? No, it's going to be staying on defensive duty. Of course, life totals very different from one another. Only 8 for Looting Howl. Ostrich up at 17, but the board is creeping ever so closer to maybe stabilizing here. I don't know how much more time Mind Sculpting Ostrich has to work with this mono red deck.
It's kind of, the door's still open enough where you can kind of have two very poor draws. So you've got, from this current turn, I think you've got 2 more turns after this before the door starts to becoming closed. It does rather depend on Looting Howl's draw, but obviously having another Cutthroat in hand with this Opt, having double Brazen Borrow, which obviously at the moment isn't doing anything, but obviously if you have a slight misdraw, the Brazen Borrows are actually very good at filling in the gaps for 3 mana if you have something else to go with it.
Well, we do see that Mind Sculpting Ostrich drew that Embercleave. This is the turn that they've been waiting for all this time. It's going to be the big block. The Brazen Borrower Petty Theft ability used up in the previous turn. Now, when the Embercleave comes down, I think this is going to be the end of the Cutthroat, surely.
I mean, it's all about the Opt in response, and then to see what you can get. It's just all on opting here and seeing what you get. If you can get the counterspell like the Iron Eyes, it may be, but or negates. Iron Eyes, negate, or maybe I guess another Brazen Borrower.
Let's see what it is. It's an essence capture, not exactly what you're looking for there. The Runaway Steamkin, bear in mind, did blow for its counters to give extra mana, which means that will not be a problem. So the +1/+1 goes on the Runaway. We know there's a Shock in hand, as well as the Infuriate extra damage. This is going to be huge for Ostrich, who we thought might have been out of this one.
Yeah, let me just quickly do some math. So that puts up to 4 with another 1/1 counter, +3. Yeah, that's lethal, because trample damage plus shock and everything with double strike. That's lethal. He just now needs to play the cards. He just needs to play them. Just needs to make sure he does the math. And with double strike, trample, that's it. Yep. Just need to go through the motions.
We thought coming into this one, this was going to be heavily favored towards Mind Sculpting Ostrich. Ultimately, though, it felt like if that decision earlier on had just gone a little bit differently and that Brazen Borrower Petty Theft ability was still there to bounce the Steamkin, then this could all turn out so very differently as the last few counters come in. Looting Howl will have to dive into the side deck as Infuriate pumps up the Steamkin. It's enormous, double striking and punching through the Cutthroat.
Yep. It's just the mono red way. Anyone that's played mono red to any form of level, red way, it's almost like a Lich King. There must always be a Lich King. There must always be a mono red deck.
Ooh.
Oh, did I miscount that?
Nope.
No, I didn't. I thought not.
It teased us for just a second. It might be different, but yeah, 8-7 double striking with trample. Not too much more you can say about that as we go into the side deck, looting how those mystical disputes being subbed out. Definitely not what you needed. How good do you think looting how's side is here to be able to deal with this, unfavorable matchup?
Truthfully, I think you need to bring in all of the Scorching Dragonfires and Lava Coils. Stop taking and kind of take out a lot of this counter magic. Hilariously, you are a blue-red flash deck, and the idea is that you play a lot of counter magic. Problem is, you want it to actually go to a turn where you have 5 or 6 lands, and your opponent probably has 4 or 3 lands, right? You want to just kind of get to this later-ish point. It's very difficult. I actually don't like Bone Crusher Giant in this matchup, because while it does kill a lot of stuff, the mono red deck is surprisingly resilient when they get to their mid to late game, with Runaway Steamkin rarely ever going below 2. Being a 2/2. Annex, obviously, you can't kill. And Phoenix you can bring back, meaning that there are over 10 cards in Ostrich deck that you know are in the deck that are just not going to kill it. And there's also a good chance he's not going to be continuing to play Robber of the Riches coming into the second game, meaning that you just need to be able to kill everything that they play, and then eventually, hopefully, a Cutthroat can just play blocking duty and keep you in a stable position.
So as we take a look at what Mind Sculpting Ostrich is doing sideboard-wise, they've actually cut one of their Ember Cleaves coming into this second game, presumably worried about the possibility of having that turn we were looking out for, the bounce of the creature when you try and play the Ember Cleave on it.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It is a legendary, so there is obviously that slight concern with getting more than one of them in the hand. It can become very difficult, so I don't hate cutting of one. Sometimes you just cut one of, even though you want to play basically 3 or 4 of, but because everything else in your list is kind of a locked spot, something like an Ember Cleave, you can trim for certain reasons, such as legendary, don't want to see 2, I'll cut it, because mathematically I should only see max of 1 if I play 3, as opposed to 4, where you could potentially see more often see 2. It's very minor. We're talking tiny percentile here, relatively speaking, but it's still worth.
So as we take a look at the opening hands, we can see that we got a pretty decent start here for Looting Howl, but over on the side of Mind Sculpting Ostrich, they are looking at this one mountain hand and wondering if they can get away with this one. I mean, I guess this is one of the decks where they actually can, and they're going to keep it. They have got the way to light up the stage, but this feels so risky.
Yeah, I get it, I know, but I get why they're doing this, but like the problem is Looting Howl literally has the kind of hand where he's like, oh my god, please have a 1 land hand. Oh my god. This Cutthroat is amazing now.
Yeah, Temple of Epiphany, very happy to find that one down there, as that 1 land will be thinking about coming down. Will you play it? Will you play it? The big decision. The 1 drop, the Tin Street Dodger. Now, one of the things we noticed coming into this one of the cards that was missing from the red deck, which has been in some of the other ones, was the ability to make some of these little threats bigger later on.
Yeah, so obviously playing the Cutthroat lets you just kind of prevent all of these early aggressive creatures. You can, while Tin Street Dodger obviously can get around that, you have to be very aggressive with how you do it, and obviously you have to put mana in, which currently Ostrich doesn't have a lot of.
Yes, but there is the second land found. The light of the stage did do its job to play on the edge of the knife, as another Tin Street Dodger will be coming down here off the top of the deck. We know that Brineborn is ready and willing to go. The third land does drop right into hand for looting. If it hadn't, that could have been a bit dicey.
Yeah, one thing I do want to touch on while we're just in a little bit of lull is Ostrich decided to keep in the Robber of the Riches, which was a card I immediately said they should be siding out. So we've got definitely a color commentator disagreeing with the player. Interesting discussion. I've seen this countless times before, and it's always a very interesting spot to see.
Yeah, well, right now we've got the situation of the 3 red mana. Of course, we've gone from 1 to 3 land quite happily for Mind Sculpting Ostrich. Thinking about what to bring in now. We know last time round it was Annex getting taken out with the counterspell. This time it could be Iron Eyes, but Bone Crusher works just as well.
Yeah, this is a spot where Bone Crusher happens to actually look really, really good, and I look really, really silly from what I said previously. It's such a corner case, right? Because we know that Ostrich has Annex in hand, and if he just played the Annex, and obviously Looting Howl doesn't happen to have a counterspell, which he does, so both work, and I just look very silly right now. I'm well aware. If he doesn't have the exact circumstance that everything's working in, it never goes how he wants it to go. Which means it's like kind of it's a happy coincidence that everything's kind of worked out in this fortunate situation. But there are a lot of circumstances where he plays Annex, you don't have the counterspell, and now you just have a Cutthroat where you're going to have to burn and trade with it to actually kill the Annex, which means you're just in a losing scenario. You're literally 2 for 1ing yourself.
All right, both going in. We know the Infuriate's in hand. It wasn't used to save the Robber. Will the Brineborn be drawn in? Literally looking directly at the Castle Emperor and saying, what are the chances, huh? What are the chances? And apparently, they're pretty darn good.
Yeah, 100% of the time, always having it is pretty good, I believe. And this puts him in a perfect spot. As we said in game 1, same in game 2. Cutthroat is the best card for this deck by like a huge margin.
So with the drop of the Bone Crusher Giant for Looting Howl, they have got a sizable body on the board, but notably, they do not have any mana left up for the Iron Eyes counterspell, or even for a Brazen Borrower. So open field here for the Ostrich. They'll immediately slam down Annex, and a Tin Street Dodger maybe as well to follow up. There's no reason to hold back, as long as you can actually get past the Giant, of course, which you'd have to pay to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. I mean, the Tin Street Dodger having haste, I actually like holding it back, not playing the one in hand. Could you just get the 1 damage now, which is the same as basically playing the other one and then having to trade one of them off. It's a weird spot. I like the line. I don't hate it. I do like also like just getting all my stuff out of my hand as fast as possible, but as I'm on mono red deck and I don't have a great way of building my hand back up, it's a little bit different.
Runaway Steamkin, it looks like it's going to be the next choice. We know there's double counterspell, double Brazen Borrow for Looting Howl. They've got a lot of options as to what they want to try and get rid of. Looks like maybe the Steamkin will be allowed onto the field as the hand is starting to run a little bit dry from Mind Sculpting. Just got the Robber, Tin Street Dodger, and a Scorched Spitter, so no real big nasty threats that can get past the Bone Crusher, at least without trading off.
Yeah, and this is what I was saying in our sideboard discussion. This is a spot where Looting Howl wanted to get to turn 6, turn 5, be reasonably healthy, and have reactive cards. He's happened to find himself in this kind of spot, so it works perfectly. There are obviously a lot of scenarios where he doesn't, and it gets very far behind and becomes very difficult.
There we go, Robber's going to be coming out as well as Steamkin starts to grow into a threat and also the possibility of grabbing all the mana out of there. Will they go for the big attack here? We know this Annex will at least generate a couple of tokens if it trades off with the Giant, but this means that it's no longer going to be the biggest thing on the board.
He wants the attack. He wants it. You saw how he hovered over. He was like, give it to me. I want to eat it. And this works perfectly, right, for Looting Howl. He just gets to block the Robber, throw back the Annex. Now, obviously, Ostrich doesn't get to play anything else. So he's basically almost kind of being put back in a turn. Obviously, Robber triggers, does get a card. Which obviously is a very nice thing, but it's not the best thing. It's not the worst thing. It's fine. And obviously, it's a card he can't play he can't play till next turn. So you kind of get this advantage.
Boy, it would have been nice to have had a negate right now if you were on the side of Mind Sculpting Ostrich, but sadly, not going to be the case. But the Robber the Rich hitting the dirt as well means there's not going to be any more rogues to access that card for the time being. It's another Bone Crusher is drawn. What a nice way to keep that ball clear.
God, I look so stupid right now. I love it. So silly. I say all these things, it happens to go a completely different way, so it doesn't matter.
Well, hey, I mean, this has been one of the great things about the season. You know, right now we're playing in completely standard. So for you guys in the US, you probably wouldn't be aware of this, but we are playing the UK version of these tournaments on Team Unified standard. So we get to see crazy different decks all the time. In this case, we get to see what the players can do with all of the top tier decks. There's no restrictions at all on what they're playing in. And how well they match up against each other, especially in this case, where our hopes for looting how was so low coming into this game.
Yeah, I don't like to be honest, but yeah, no, I was expecting this to be sadly a 2-0 stomp, but this is looking very good for the favor of Looting How. I would have liked to have seen him to be slightly more aggressive personally. He's just playing these Bone Crusher Giants and just sitting back on them. I think attack last time would have been totally viable. He has Brazen Borrow, Negate, Iron Eyes all in hand. There's no reason to keep playing so scared. You need to actually be a bit more proactive. I think this is a fault that a lot of Flash players don't understand. You sometimes actually have to be the proactive one, especially against the aggro deck. You have to be willing to take a few bits of damage here and there just so you can actually be more aggressive in the later turns. So I think he could have happily been at 14, but gotten his opponent down to now it would have been 14, so it would have been mirroring life totals. And potentially he could be closing this game out to some effect. Obviously, that 5th land is going to be critical for everything coming online because he'll be able to play 2 spells a turn, which I believe is better than none or just 1.
Well, a big draw coming in for Mind Sculpting Ostrich is that Embercleave, but we of course know, and I think Ostrich knows in the heart of hearts, that there's going to be 1, maybe even 2 counter spells waiting for that Embercleave when it comes down. Maybe an attack in with a Scorched Spitter to get that light up the stage running, but at some point they're going to have to find a way to get that cleave in, or they just can't get past this giant.
Yeah, the only thing they do have is a negate in hand. Because they stole it with the Robber of the Riches, they actually don't have to be as worried. They can't play the Ambercleave for 2 red. The perfect scenario for them would be obviously to just play it for 2 red, and then obviously when the eventual counterspell they're expecting to come out, to then counter it back. Obviously not having that kind of luxury is slightly frustrating for them, but I do think Ostrich needs to understand that he is the aggressor and he does need to just start killing his opponent, which he hasn't been doing for the last few turns.
There's the Embercleave, there's the Negate, there's not enough mana and not enough counter spells to keep it up on the board. As you can see, the light of the stage will at least allow a little bit more room for Ostrich to work with, but they're losing creatures on board to try and find more creatures. It doesn't seem like it's a cycle that's going to end well for them.
And there was a really interesting small spot there. Obviously, picking Quench or Negate to counter the Embercleave. It ended up not mattering because he ended up just countering both spells that came down. Obviously, the light up the stage that you had privied everybody to slightly beforehand.
There's the second Bone Crusher coming in, and you look at Mind Sculpting Ostrich's hand, and there's just nothing going on there at all. The life totals may not be equal, but the board states are ridiculous. There's going to be Brazen Borrowers coming to the air before too much more happens. Ostrich, we know that there aren't any more counter spells left in. I'd love to see another Embercleave coming through, but without any way to get it easily, it's going to be a big ask.
Yeah, it's trying to figure out. They don't have burn. We didn't see them side into a lot of burn in that second game anyway, and they don't have any additional burn to the face in their sideboard. So they don't really have much to rely on. Obviously, they're playing against a counter deck, so they know even trying to go for the face plan isn't huge. Obviously, Looting How is sitting at a virtual 7. Once the Scorched Spitter, if and when they do attack, they could potentially trigger, assuming the Brazen Borrower doesn't flicker them, but I see no reason to not do that. I imagine over the next following turns, we're going to see one of these Brazen Borrowers be flashed out, and then the Spectral Sailor, and then from there, we'll just see a very quick 2 to 3 turn quick kill is what I'm expecting.
The Scorched Spitter comes down, so that's 3 guaranteed damage through as long as the attack can be made to happen. But Spectral Sailor, now with the door open to get in the way, provide that third body. And also the card draw as well. Nice use of the mana there from Looting How will hopefully get them in a good position to start laying out these borrowers as creatures.
Yeah, this just really helps just stay far in position in a controlling state where they don't have to worry about too many other things going on. They can just keep that control that they've already got. A little bit surprised they didn't play a few other cards. A little bit surprised they didn't try and be more proactive. The only way that Looting Howe obviously can lose this game is by going to 0. And he is giving Ostrich a lot of opportunities, far more than I would have given. I would definitely play this game more aggressively. But, tail versus the hare, right? The tortoise and the hare, right? Better safe and slow than try and run through and die. Because you've got all the counter spells, so what's the problem? What's the problem? You can just win anyway.
Yeah, last time round, Essence Capture was the card that Looting Howe was cursing off the top of the deck. This time, it helps keep the creatures off the board, keep a pretty darn good parity here. The Ionize, the Brazen Borrower's Petty Theft ability, both still available to counteract everything. But we're waiting till there's 2 blue mana and 1 left up to get those Brazen Borrowers in who can actually start putting some damage back onto Ostrich.
Now, what do we do? What can we... I'm trying to think of the sequence of draws as Ostrich. What do I need to draw so I can win this game? Like the actual full sequence of draws. So my opponent's at a virtual 6, 5 because I hopefully get 2 attacks with my Scorch Spitter. What do I need to win? And it always involves both of my light up the stages hitting all my shocks. Castle obviously will hit for an extra 1. But I already... no, that doesn't work. Castle can't tack for more damage because I tried to play the Tin Street Dodger. It's this kind of thing where it's like, I can get my opponent down to 5, and that's paper, but the problem is getting them to 0 is actually the most difficult part ever.
Well, Ostrich is trying to go for that kill shot in some fashion, because they've gone in with all 3 of their Scorch Spitters. They have gotten the pump up from Castle Empress, so that is another little bit of damage in. The Shock we know is in hand, but the Petty Theft will put one of those Scorch Spitters back into the hand. So it's a trade of 2 damage for 2 cards. That's not even as good as a Shock to the face.
No, almost a shot to the heart. Bon Jovi would be happy with. But it just didn't work out, and now this is the kind of damage where Bonecrusher Giant, just 4 damage here, 4 damage there, suddenly it'll be over.
Wait a second. If there wasn't a whole bunch of counter spells here, this maybe could have been the end of it.
2 damage to its controller. Claim the yeah, actually, yeah. It would have been. Wow, that's kind of crazy.
So
that's
guys,
kind of crazy.
We're down to just 3 life now. It's looking like, we know that we've only got the Shock in hand for Mind Sculpting Ostrich, in with everything for Looting Howe. They finally survived the huge wave of red aggression. Now the 2 unblocked attacks will finish the job. It's 1 game apiece, and back into the sideboards as we will determine who will be winning our first of our 3 matches here today between our 2 3-person teams.
I look very stupid there. Bonecrusher Giants seem to be the MVP there, so maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to eat my words there. I'll eat my words. I'm always willing to concede the fact when I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm still kind of surprised that sideboarding strategy worked out for them, frankly. But then I guess the good thing that they have going for them is that Ostrich just isn't sideboarding a huge amount. He's sideboarding a few cards here, a few cards there, and that's kind of it. Meaning, obviously, just Looting Howe just gets to kind of play, I'm just playing against the same deck every single time. I can sideboard more effectively for that.
Yeah, Looting Howe didn't sideboard anything from what I saw. As we check out these opening hands, we've got the Brimals, we've got Lava Coils to help clear out the field. On the other side, from Mind Sculpting Ostrich, 3 Shocks and a Runaway Steamkin. Oh boy, not a bad way to start game number 3, but doesn't leave you with a whole lot on board, so the mulligan will go through. Anax in this new hand, and a good amount of removal, as well as that Infuriate we've seen to use to great effect so far.
Yeah, the Infuriates have been really key going into this matchup. We've been able to see them just do a lot in different spots, very unique spots in a lot of different areas. Obviously, he is on the play this time as losing that first game. So this is where the red deck always wants to be. just on the play, playing aggressive, but not having a 1-drop or a 2-drop in hand is just kind of devastating, honestly.
At least the Scorching Dragonfire will go very well if the Brineborn Cutthroat does come down. Yeah, this is so different from the previous times we saw this. Won't be played this time round. The third mana will drop. Annex comes in, but that means all the removal is now off the table for this turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst, but obviously we know that Looting Howe just has Essence Capture in hand, and he can just happily Essence Capture, or he can just play a Cutthroat and then just Lava Coil it the next turn. This is why, as the mono red deck, I kind of think you have to mulligan again. I think going down to 5 and just trying to find those 1-drops, 2-drops are more effective. Annex on his own is only as good as obviously everything else you've played, as opposed to just kind of relaxing on what you have. Though they just decide to pass. Huh.
Okay, so presumably... So we've got the possibility of the Essence Capture here, but the Lava Coil not being used. Scorching Dragonfire, that's 3 damage. I don't think there's any way that the Brineborn gets big enough to get out of the way here.
No, even playing the other Brineborn, Cutthroat, and Sailor doesn't work. And obviously now we know that Ostrich has claimed the Firstborn in hand, which makes things rather awkward. I really don't understand why you wouldn't just Lava Coil and get rid of the Annex. I mean, I guess value is a thing, but that seems far too greedy. That's giving the red deck an opening now from playing a very slow start. So now you're just going to play this into the Spectral Sailor. It's fine, but
I have to wonder, maybe they were expecting the shock and thought that they could get the 2 extra health or 2 extra toughness from playing 2 cards rather than the Dragonfire. But now the shock comes down, of course, and there's only one card, the Spectral Sailor follow-up there, which won't make the Brineborn Cutthroat big enough. That's 2 Cutthroats down in short order. I think surely now we've got to finally see that Lava Coil, but that will leave Isata behind.
And now what? Now they should. They're just doing. No, they don't, because of Exile. It's Exile. It's not when they die. It's that little piece of text that Wizards started introducing, which I actually thoroughly love. As a, in my heart, I'm a red player. On the table, I'm a black-green control. I want the game to go to turn 50, but in my heart, I'm a mono red boy.
Well, the Tin Street Dodger will keep those mono-red dreams alive, unless, of course, it gets Essence captured. It is a small one, so I think maybe those captures will be held onto for now, holding out for those bigger creatures. There is the Annex in hand to get Essence captured later on and pump up the Spectral Sailor. But for now, no plays. The Bone Crusher could get rid of the Tin Street Dodger. It looks like we'll see maybe just the attack in the air this turn.
Yeah, I like the attack now, and I actually like just passing. Everything you can do now is at instant speed. We're now doing the true is it flash kind of mentality now. We do everything when we want to do it and keep our opponent guessing through all the options, which I think is really important.
Fervent Champion coming down. Could be Essence captured here, but there's still 2 red mana left up. Bone Crusher able to deal with this from the side of Lu Ting Hao. We'll see what happens. It's not going to be a further play. Bone Crusher will stomp all over the Dodger, leaving the Fervent and its first strike up.
I kind of actually would have preferred to kill the Fervent Champion because of that first strike. You know you're playing against it for infiltrate reasons. I wasn't expecting them to actually protect their 10th Street Dodger, but I mean, I guess it works. But now they can unsummon it, but they can't do it until the Bone Crusher resolves because you don't want to lose your Bone Crusher.
There we go, that's exactly what does happen. The 2 mana spent to put the Dodger off the field. Claim the Firstborn. The only playable card, apart from just playing out that Dodger once again. So I think that's what's exactly is going to be happening for the time being. The 2 Essence captures still in hand. A Bone Crusher could be played out here while leaving them up, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is now the turn that Looting Howe was waiting for. 7 or something turns in game 2, where he needed those 5 lands, 3 of them to tap and play aggressive creatures, 2 of them to keep up responses and answers. This is the perfect spot. Obviously, this is heavily signaling to Ostrich that obviously I have Essence Capture. The only card in my deck that is double blue for 2 mana is Essence Capture. So obviously it signals / signpost, but it also could just be negate, quench, and all these other cards as well. So Signposted, but not the worst.
Dodger gonna pay the cost to be able to sneak past the Bone Crusher Giant. Here comes the Annex. Or does it? Yes, right into the Essence Capture. This is going to be a disaster here as now Spectral Sailor will get pumped up to be a 2-2 and finally start getting some serious damage back in. Temple is the draw. Will, I suspect, yes, scry away a second copy. So Essence Capture and Brazen Borrow both up, and we're going for an all-out attack.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about throughout the first, well, almost all of game 2 once it had gotten to like turn 7. I wanted looting to be aggressive, to take the aggression, to tell the red deck, no, I'm going to end this game now. I don't think it could have gone better for him in this game, though. Outside of keeping up the cutthroats, which he potentially could have, but
Well, Annex following Cutthroat into the grave, can't find its way past all of those essence captures, and Spectral Sailor gets even stronger up in the air. Now the aggressive deck is now the aggressed onto. Mind Sculpting has only got Claim the Firstborn, the only card in hand. It's looking like we could be seeing a first match victory across the UK unless something dramatic happens in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can take the Spectral Sailor, deal an extra 3 damage, but obviously Looting Howl will have Brazen Borrow. He put that one to the bottom! I thought he put that to the bottom! He did. Oh god, I've had that happen to me so many times. You're like, wait, and then you go through your whole deck, make sure you did put it to the bottom. You see it at the bottom, you're like, okay, well, I don't know what happened there.
Down to 4 as a Spectral Sailor can, of course, draw that ISO without leaving the mana to play it. It looks like Brazen Borrow is going to be coming out this time during Mind Sculpting Ostrich's turn, as Claim the Firstborn will be able to grab and punch, but of course the Ember Cleave is there as well. Does the maths work out here? Is there enough mana to go for the big hit?
4 plus, so that's 3 plus 1, so you steal it. That's 4. That's 6, 7, 8. I think it's 8. Right, so 3 doubled 6. I don't think so, sadly. I think they're now just doing the motions just for the funsies. But so what? 4, 8, 9, 10? It's 10, right? Wait, they're stealing the Bone Crusher? Oh, 15, 10, 12? It's just 12.
I mean, I would do it if I was in their position. If they, you've got a Spectral Sailor in the air that's going to end it next time round. As the draw comes through, that still wouldn't be enough to counter the Embercleave. Let's see if those maths were right. It looks like it will be down to a single life to do the final turn here for Mind Sculpting Ostrich. That has got to smart as the Bone Crusher comes back to the other side of the field. Spectral Sailor good enough to end the game by itself. I expect we'll see the full attack in as our first best of 3 comes to the end. Looting Howl managing to take the win in an unfavored matchup.
And that was a really, really cool matchup. And now, if I'm Ostrich, I'm immediately watching the VOD straight after this. Immediately to find out where I could have hit that 1 extra damage somewhere. If maybe it was with a Teen Street Dodger a few turns or something else where I'd be like, oh, where could I have found that? That was very well played by both players, honestly speaking. Thoroughly enjoyed commentating that with you.
So the University of Sheffield player winning out the first game, but we're going to be getting onto our second game after a short break. Just for you guys watching, could you give us a little preview of what we're going to be seeing in game number 2?
Yeah, so we've got one deck that's known very well in the format, premier tier 2 deck, not one of the top. We've already seen one of those, but John Sacrifice from I can't remember the player's name off the top of my Soseni, yes. They've brought an amazing John Sacrifice list, but but the Brit has decided to go for green-black mid-range aggro, I'm going to say. It's basically kind of tree control is how I'm going to kind of call it throughout this narrative. I know it's not, but it's not a deck that you can see in any metagame breakdown. But imagine that. We've got tree mid-range or tree aggro, depending on where you want to go for it, versus John Sacrifice.
All right, guys, so we'll be taking a quick 5-minute break. When we return, our second match of the 3 this evening between the US and the UK. First match going to the UK, a chance for redemption for the US, as we'll be fascinated to see how the 2-1s match up next. Again, 5 minutes time. We'll catch you guys then. It's still Canafit, joined by Mask One as we go into our second best of three this evening, pitting the members of the Sheffield team representing the TheNUEL up against the Northeastern University squad representing the Collegiate Star League. Our first series went to the TheNUEL in surprising fashion, as it didn't feel like, we were not expecting those decks to match up. But now we head into our second series. We've got Sasani with the Jund Sacrifice deck, Arthur JP with the Golgari Henge deck. I mean, we have to know that all predictions are always subject to change here, but going into the second series, who are you favoring?
Sasani. I mean, I don't see a okay, so God. Okay. So this is the Great Henge mid-range, but aggro, because they're playing Knight of the Ebon Legion and Pelt Collector with Glove Changer Guardian. So it's more of an aggro deck with a kind of control, like Great Henge top end, right? So that's why I've called it Tree mid-range aggro. It's trying to do like three things at once. Versus a deck that is very, very known to be the best kind of mid-range deck in the format. That Sasani has decided to bring today. So it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup for us to see.
All right, guys, our second match, our second best of three is about to begin. So though we're playing three matches, do bear in mind, we'll play out all three, even if it goes entirely to, in this case, if the UK win out here, it's not a best of three of the best of threes in a traditional sense. It's just being done for fun. We will later on be looking to bring back this kind of format and international competition as we check out our opening hands. For Arthur, they've got a lot of black, but not a lot of black land. And for Sasani, a much better starting hand with the Oven and Familiar along with the Mayhem Devil that makes it all come together oh so beautifully.
Yeah, this is definitely a spot where it gets really awkward for Arthur, where he has to arguably mulligan aggressively. I don't hate taking this 6 now, but like get rid of the Questing Beast or get rid of the one with the Paradise Druids and just really hope to just land off the top and just kind of figure it out from there. It gets really awkward because if you go to 5, what are you hoping to see as this aggro mid-range deck against a known deck which is Junsak, which just means you're in a really bad spot if you go down to too many cards because they will happily win through card advantage.
It will be the Mole down to 5, though that does mean the land is there to make the play. It's Spawn of Mayhem. We notice very conspicuous in the hand there as one of the big expensive pieces. And also Growth Chamber Guardian, not a card we've seen it too often, as it's actually going to be the cheap Pelt Collector, one of the ones sent away. What will be the other?
I like keeping the lands. If anything, I'd rather get rid of Spawn of Mayhem and just go for all the lands. Okay. Or not what I said. That's fine. No one's doing what I say to do. That doesn't matter.
So the Knight comes down. I suppose at least the Knight is kind of self-sufficient, but we know as the Cauldron Familiar combo has been tormenting people for quite some time, that just swinging into it, once that Witch's Oven in hand comes down, that straight aggro is not going to work anymore.
No, it's just not going to work. And after a few more turns of this, it's just going to be kind of over. It's weird to call a game over after 2 turns. But when you are a kind of aggressive deck and there's Cauldron Familiar down against you on turn 1, and you know that they've kept their 7, you know it's never good.
No, it's going to be the hit to the face as well as the Oven coming down. We know we've got the Mayhem Devil waiting for Sasani there in hand to make each one of these sacrifices hurt like crazy as another Familiar drops to the field. No chance of being able to rid the field. We have got the Regisaur in hand alongside the Spawn of Mayhem to at least allow for some big drops coming up for Arthur, though.
Yeah, it's going to be all on this Regisaur and Spawn of Mayhem. They're going to be pulling overtime today, and they're going to need to if Arthur has any hopes in really closing this out with some timely fashion. As if this game goes long, it becomes more and more and more difficult for Arthur to ever really close it in an effective time frame.
Uh, yes, usually Knight of the Ebon Legion able to pump itself up to deal with these early problems. The Cat, one problem that cannot be dealt with is the Regisaur will be coming through. That's going to be stripping out a card from Arthur's hand. That Spawn of Mayhem, I wonder if it's even going to end up getting played.
It's yeah. Next turn, so he draws a card, then he discards a card, then draws the card. He needs to either hit another land, so it doesn't matter, any land is fine, or he needs to be able to attack and then be able to play something afterwards. It does become rather difficult, but obviously we know what Sasani has in hand, and having this Mayhem Devil is just back-breaking in every sense of the word.
Yeah, we need to be able to sacrifice the cats, have the cats sacrifice the food. That's a lot coming out every single turn that can be thrown out. That could be the end of the Knight of the Ebon Legion. We know that even though the Regisaur is so very powerful, it's going to struggle beyond belief to try and get anything through. As there we go, the 2 sacks in a row. That Mayhem Devil clearing out the board. The Rotting Regisaur, I think the possibility of getting damage through seems to be about 0 right now.
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised that they decided to do this all now. I'm guessing that they just kind of want control purposes. I don't agree at all doing it now. I see no reason why you need to do it now. You have cats. You're not going to block the knight. So why are you doing it all now? I'm guessing to just protect around Pump. But then you're going to want to block Cauldron Familiar, and then you're going to get it back. And now you're always down 1 Familiar until you can get another food. Seems a little bit questionable, but I mean, you're just hoping that they're just never going to be able to play anything, and it's going to work out beautifully here.
And we've got the Agonizing Remorse in hand as well for Sasani. If they start to suspect that there's anything going on for Arthur right now that could get past what is currently available, as of course, that Mayhem Devil will be able to do the hits to the face, doubling up, or even tripling up, I suppose, on the Familiar's ability to drain away all of Arthur's life.
Yeah, I mean, with Arthur just playing nothing and passing, you have to assume it's either 2 lands in hand, which you mean you've already won this game, or they've got Spawn of Mayhem, or maybe another Regisaur, but then there's no reason they wouldn't play that, so maybe they have some of their higher end stuff like a Questing Beast, a Rankle, or maybe even the Great Henge. There's 0 reason now why you don't just go for the rip out card of the hand and just keep this train going.
That's exactly what happens. The Agonizing Remorse, one of the cards coming in from Theros Beyond Death, has provided full information as to what Arthur's got, and now they're down to that single card. Hey, it's the 4th land they were hoping to get into play, but yeah, the Regisaur is, well, it's just going to run right into a Familiar, I presume, while the shots to the face continue coming in. There's 18 life for Sasani to work with right now, so they could even afford to take the hit if they wanted to. I'd be surprised if they did.
Yeah, they don't even have to. They can just keep doing this repeated thing of doing 2 damage, 2, 3 damage. They do lots of damage a turn. They get to block the Regisaur. It just doesn't matter. And the problem is with Arthur's deck is he doesn't have that Embercleave. There is this huge thing about attacking an Embercleave to a rotting Regisaur and just being able to go, well, it's fine if you play Cauldron Familiar because I hit you for 16. Well, 15 because I -1 from your Cauldron Familiar, but the rest of it's fine. Playing a green-black deck becomes very difficult to actually go over the top. That's why they've decided to go. That's why Arthur decided to go in this the Great Henge kind of direction to kind of be able to go over the top by going sideways. It does become difficult though when you do sadly have to mulligan to 5.
Yeah, the mulligan really hurting as these Fabled Passages doing such a great job of providing even more damage from the Mayhem Devil. Of course, we know that Corvold, the Fey Curse King, is now in Sasani's hand. As much as they're already winning the game, you can always win just that little bit more.
You can always win a bit more, and everybody loves that, especially in a friendly matchup like this one that we're showcasing today. Win more. This is the time to show the win more, because everybody wants to see it. How much was I dead? How much was I? Everybody wants to know it.
Oh boy, another Agonizing Remorse in hand, just in case there are any cards to take away. I mean, that's, blanking on the Agonizing Remorse, that's gotta, really smart, as Corvold is lurking there, the infinitely already has got lethal without growing. Pelt Collector's not gonna do it, and that's the first game going across to the US.
I wanted the kobold to do the attack. I wanted it. I wanted my dragon to do it.
All right, into sideboarding time, as we do see that we've got some options here for Arthur JP, that Cryo the Carnarium, and it looks like we might be seeing the shifting Ceratops coming in as well.
Yeah, so the biggest and most important thing for Arthur to really get rid of is these Cauldron of Familiars. It becomes very difficult for him to ever stay on top. Well, Sasani, she actually has a lot of opportunities for themselves to actually just kind of go in any direction that they actually want to fit. They can go into this Korvac, Titan of the Death's Hunger kind of direction. They've got Wildborn Preserver, Lovestruck Beast. They've got every opportunity open to them to kind of be like, well, what axis was I scared of? I almost wouldn't be. If I was them, I'd almost not want to do too much sideboarding now, because I feel like a lot of players have this tendency to over sideboard. I'd almost like to sideboard maybe Casualties of War at most. Just take a very obligatory, very strong card. Like, this is a good card. Bring in one good card, take out something that's a bit medium, maybe the Massacre Girls, because they're probably not going to do a lot, and then just go, shrug shoulders. Let's just see what game 2 offers for me.
Yeah, the Massacre Girls are hitting the bench. Something that I'm noticing here, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce this in a roughly appropriate way, Pelukrenos Unchained, coming in as a big hitter from the sideboard for Arthur JP. Not something I certainly was expecting to see, with its ability to fight everything, everywhere, all the time.
So this was a card, when it was spoiled, that everyone was either, this is going to break the format, or this card's going to do nothing. Now, everybody originally, if you're like me and you're a little person that's played this game for far too long, you remember Dedi Polokros. Polokros, the card, Mono Green Devotion was a great deck. You played it in Red Green Monsters. Again, beautiful card. The history of this creature has been great. Now, obviously, he's got a black twist to him. So, is it better or worse? Arguably, in my opinion, it's far worse. The ability to fight, if you can get aggressive boards, is really good.
All right, let's take a look at these opening hands, as it's looking a lot better for Arthur JP. They've at least got the early play and an Agonizing Remorse to try and neutralize what Sasani is going for. We've got the double Corvold and God Eternal Bontu in hand. A lot of high end for Sasani, but not a lot of early plays outside of the Epic Downfall, which has to wait for a mana cost 3 or greater creature to be able to even do anything.
Yeah, it does become very difficult. I actually really hate Arthur's hand the more I look at it, because all it's got is what turn 1, and then Pelt, and it's got Pelt Collector into Remorse, and then it just kind of shrugs its shoulders. And he knows he's playing against a deck which will not give him the time of day. It will happily just play a Cat, Oven, wait till turn 5, play a Kobold, and just go, you didn't do much. You just shrug your shoulders and just take the game. So I really think you have to mulligan this and just try and find something, which is hilarious, because against a bunch of other decks in this format, you go like, maybe I can keep this. I just don't think you can keep this against a sacrifice space deck, or anything that also is better at going through the mid-range part of the game better than you.
Yeah, it looks like Arthur is going to agree. We'll go for the mulligan to 6. We do see the Pelukrenos there as the answer that was brought in from the sideboard. Will it be the keep? That looks like a much more decent hand. Wait a second. Whenever you see the menu come up, like, no, surely not. I think they're maybe just messing with us here. We've got a Paradise Druid for an early play, Murderous Rider for some removal, and the Agonizing Remorse returning for some hand action, as we have had Sasani also mulligan, now has double Mayhem Devil and a Noxious Grasp along with the Murderous Rider. A decent start, but no Cat and no Oven.
Yeah, I mean, Sasani's hand is definitely better in a vacuum. Personally, it has a lot more options open to it, and I like their hand a lot more. But it's very kind of it's better now. But in 3 turns, if you don't do anything relevant, it's actually a pretty medium to poor hand. So it's got a high upside. I like to look at it as a hand with high upside, but it definitely needs help. It's got good initial starting, but it definitely needs some help with like a Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven, and then you're basically golden, or maybe some of the later stuff like Kobold.
All right, so we're on to our first turns. Arthur JP with Swamp, Forest, and Castle Lockthering. So they've got enough mana to cast everything in their hand if they make use of the Paradise Druid. I'm loving to see how the Polar Kranos ends out playing out here, because we'll do a pretty good job of trying to keep that board clear and keeping those cat up and combos from getting out of hand.
Yeah, and actually playing it on turn 3 here is going to be huge. Like, actually huge, because obviously Cersena has had to keep a slower hand. Being able to play Paradise Druid into Polychronos is just going to be very, very, very strong in the grand scale of things. But we might have a slight problem here.
Yes, Arthur JP missing their land drop there suggests more than anything that's quite likely to be a disconnect on their side. So apologies, guys. We are playing across some pretty large distances, so I think we'll probably end up seeing a remake of that last one, which is a shame, because those are some quite interesting looking opening hands. We do get the chance to talk a little bit more about what our expectations would be under normal circumstances for this kind of matchup, though.
Yeah, so this is a matchup that obviously we have hinted that we are definitely... Oh, okay. I think I keep getting whispers and I'm not sure what's happening.
Yes, okay, so apparently we are headed back into the game, so it's kind of, we ended up in an odd situation here where the first time was effectively skipped by Arthur JP, but they've ended up with an extra hand, so I guess in some senses it kind of more or less works out the same. So back to the same hands, we've still got a chance to see Unchained drop down to the field, but now the momentum is across the Sasani, as she'll effectively be working as if she had the first turn, and it looks like, okay, we can actually see a concession on the first game. That's surprising. Or
I think because what should have happened, in the grand scale of things, what should have happened is Sasani shouldn't have played a land and should have just passed. And then it would have been actual parody. They just basically got to draw a card for free, and then they just keep playing from there. I think they're just going to try maybe have Sasani skip a turn.
All right, guys, so we have received official word. Unfortunately, due to the oddity there, which I presume must have just been down to some kind of connection problems across the Atlantic, the first game has been officially conceded by the TheNUEL party, so we'll be going straight into sideboarding for game number 2.
Game 3, game 2 has been conceded, right? Game 1, we won. Game 2, we've conceded. Game 3, remake?
Yes, we'll have some updates for you guys in a second. It looks like our players are good. Okay, so however it's going to work out long term, our players are now going back into another game, and it looks like they're going to be playing this one out. So we'll await official confirmation. Nope, they're just teasing us.
Oh, so boy. How I expect this to go, as I have played this, I've played far too many games of competitive Magic the Gathering. I've played competitive arena tournaments. What I'm expecting to happen is the TheNUEL team won game 1. We all saw that. We then had a disconnect. Normally in a disconnect scenario, the player has to concede the match. Normally, that's what happens. But we still get to play another game. Or you concede that game, but you still get to play game 3 of the match, is what I'm assuming is happening.
Okay. Sorry, I do apologize. It's a kind of a little bit of an unusual situation here. So effectively what we're ending up with is we're going to go back to the situation that we had before. The concession was not on the game that was actually being played. It was that the series was going to remade entirely with the first game concession to put us back where we were. So you can basically just forget everything that just happened because it doesn't matter anymore. We're going to go back into game number 2 and then start over again.
Right, okay, that makes sense. Oh yeah, because Sasani would have just won 2-0 then. Because we lost game 1. Of course. For some reason. Of course, it's a friendly thing, so we don't want to just concede and just go, oh yeah, they won, whatever.
Okay, so back to opening hands. Of course, we're going to have a different setup than before. Arthur has got the 2 lands with double Growth Chamber Guardian and Pelt Collector. It looks like they're going to be... Yes, I think that was off a mulligan down to 6. So they've got some decent early plays, Canberry and Overgrown Tomb. On Sasani's side of things, it's a little similar to before. Another epic downfall, Trail of Crumbs, and Thrashing Bronzodon, but no immediate plays.
Yeah, this is actually arguably a far better hand for Arthur. Just being able to have that Pelt Collector into the Growth Chamber Guardian, with the Cryoth Canarium in case of any, kitty cats that we could see in the early few turns. It's actually a very good spot for him to be in.
Yeah, again, no cat and oven for Susani, as we will see the dig through the deck. So there we go, up to 2 land. We've now got a few options here for Arthur JP, as they'll go straight for the Growth Chamber Guardian. Not something we see too often, able to search the deck for additional copies of itself whenever it adapts or gets a 1/1 by any other means.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is going to be actually where we're sitting at in turn 4. It's one of these interesting things I like to think about for Magic. The first few turns are almost negligible. People just play their cards out as they get them. Turn 4 and turn 5, especially in a kind of mid-range matchup like this is going to be where a lot of the game is going to be decided, and how the future of this game goes, and like the kind of cards that we're going to need to see from both of these players. Growth Chamber Guardian, obviously, though, just an impeccable card.
Agonizing Remorse will reveal the hand of Susani. Will it be the Liliana we've started seeing coming through the decks? No, it looks like it was the Epic Downfall, I believe, taken out of hand there, which means that the Bronze Dawn will still be a concern here. Right now, though, Growth Chamber Guardian has got a chance to make the attack straight in, and at least try and bring these life totals a little closer together. Worth noting, there is a missed land drop for Arthur JP, though, so they can't get that Spawn of Mayhem out, even with a discount for having done some damage.
Yeah, it really does kind of hurt the deck. You really wanted to be able to either play this Pelt Collector or this Spawn of Mayhem. Having to almost take a turn off to kind of take a card away, it's just never where you want to be sitting.
I believe that's a second missed land drop there from Arthur JP. Not the best of starts when their entire hand is costing 3 or 4 mana. That Brontodon now the biggest thing on the field. And we know we've got follow-up. We've finally found the oven. No cat as of yet, but there is a Love-Struck Beast there. And as the turns pass, we're getting ever closer to Liliana, Dread Horde General, dropping down for Susani.
Yeah, the thing is, Trail of Crumbs is actually able to do a really kind of good imitation with for a Witch's Oven, because you're just able to get more of these food, because it gives you a food to start with, and then whenever you sacrifice a food, you may pay 1 mana, look at cards, find it faster. It does a very good impression, to a degree, of what you need it to do. But Love-Struck Beast, just a big boy.
Yeah, it comes down with both parts. Only 1 land away to make sure that Liliana will be coming down on turn number 6. As again, Arthur JP, no land, just more Spawns of Mayhem. And I don't know if there's any way now to get the damage through. We have got the Carcanarium playable and the Murderous Rider as well. And it looks like we might be waiting to play the Murderous Rider during Susani's turn.
I think this is a really, really sad spot for Arthur. I think, obviously, if that third land had come 2-3 turns earlier, the Spawn of Mayhem would have done huge amounts of damage, and with the second one could be threatening lethal very quickly. But now, because we missed those land drops for 2-3 turns of critical time where we were still getting in damage, it's now going to be very, very difficult for Arthur to ever get that damage outside of potentially getting another land, which is another land he's got to hope for, to then play the Spawn of Mayhem, and then a turn after play the other Spawn of Mayhem. And you can see what I'm saying. It's asking for a lot, and it's also asking for Susani to do nothing.
Right now, the Trail of Crumbs being put to good effect. Extra life, extra cards, with another Trail of Crumbs in hand. The Mayhem Devil is also ready to calm down in the near future and start making these sacrifice plays hurt that much worse. There is not a lot of toughness on Arthur JP's board. That Mayhem Devil is going to go to town.
Yeah, and being just a land/turn off for Liliana as well, it's going to be difficult for Arthur to stay in this game because of Liliana's ability to not only make 2/2s, but also the ability to just make both of the players sacrifice. It wouldn't be surprising for me to just see Liliana potentially come down over the next turn or two and just kind of basically take full control, even with Murderous Riders being a thing in Arthur's hand.
So the Growth Chamber Guardian will adapt and find another copy of itself, as it will again not be a land coming through. Another Murderous Rider does at least, it's at least playable, But Lovestruck Beast remains the biggest thing on the board, and I have to think once Liliana comes down that all questions are answered pretty definitively.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Susaina just gets to ask the question, oh, do I want to plus my Liliana, or do I want to get immediate value, or do I want term value? I think against a player who quite clearly has got a lot of cards in my hand that are relevant, I would just slam Liliana -4 and just start swinging aggressively.
Yeah, sacrificing 2 creatures when you've only got 2 creatures on the board has really got to smart. The Murderous Rider, of course, will be able to take out Liliana in its short order if she does come down at this stage. But note that we don't have that land to be able to play her right now. And of course, for the Lovestruck Beast, we've got to watch out for that 1-1 and make sure it stays in play to allow it to keep attacking.
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised Lovestruck Beast just hasn't been attacking for the last 2 turns when there was the option to. Just because a 5/5 just isn't faring good again. Well, rather, Arthur's creatures aren't faring good against a 5/5. Far bigger than anything else that they have.
It looks like the Mayhem Devil route is going to be going down. The Pelt Collector, of course, extremely vulnerable to getting taken out. But the Grave Chamber Guardian, at least big enough to stand up for now. Pelt Collector taken off the board. Lovestruck Beast no longer able to attack.
That's surprising. I thought the attack first might have come in and then play the Mayhem Dales post-combat and then do this Witch's Oven response, because they've just decided to just not try and attack for 5 for reasons being counterfeit. Can you think of a reason?
I think maybe just comfortable with where they are right now. Certainly there's a lot of insurance for Susani later on as the first of the 2 Murderous Riders is cashed in. Of course, the Oven is able to get some extra food out. Noxious Grass, a sideboard card against the green and white decks, able to very efficiently clear the board out, down to 9 health as that 4th land finally arrives, but it feels like it's way too late.
But that's why I was asking you. We know they've got Noxious Grasp in hand. Why are you not just trying to kill the opponent? I'm far too aggressive, clearly, in my own play style of this game. I like to hurt people and make sure I can get every little bit of damage in. Maybe I need to learn something from these players. I need to reflect on my own ability and think, oh, how do they do it? Maybe I can learn something more. I need to learn more about this meta. They're quite clearly doing well because both of these teams are top of the standings, from my understanding, in their respective leagues. So they're doing both incredibly well. They have some of the best win percentage. So maybe I need to take my notepad out and start learning.
Yeah, maybe they just do things differently in the Collegiate Star League. As we have got the Trail of Crumbs coming down once again. I suspect we're going to be seeing some digging at some point to try and find just a few more cards. The Spawn of Mayhem, though, has officially arrived on the battlefield and also powered up. Once the players get below that 10 life total, will get stronger every time while also punching through, but could be a liability here with the life totals being as they are.
I do totally agree from you. I mean, this is now a Questing Beast that just gets traded with a Lustrup Beast. Hits for some trample damage, which is nice. But yeah, as you said, Counterfeit, it just might be a little bit too late. They've gained a lot of life through the food tokens that they have been able to gain through these Trails of Crumb, and obviously with sacrificing creatures when they don't need them with the Witch's Oven.
So Liliana is the option available as the Temple of Malice will scry and keep the Murderous Rider on top. Just more options for getting rid of whatever Arthur JP brings onto the field. Dreadhorde General. Will they go for... No, won't go for the sacrifice. We'll bring out the zombie instead.
Well, I mean, if they're going to do the sacrifice, they attack first and then do the sacrifice. I mean, I guess they're just on the idea that my opponent has a Spawn of Mayhem. That's a 6/6, but they're hurting themselves. So if my Liliana gets to stay around, they've already played 1 Murderous Rider that I'm aware of. I know they play 4 in their deck, I'm guessing, but... I mean, the opponent would assume, oh, I guess they play 4 if there's open deck list and they know they've only got 2, and then they've got even less of a reason to worry, that meaning their Liliana is safe even more, meaning it's normally safe to just play the Liliana and it won't die in a lot of scenarios.
Well, I mean, if you're going to Murderous Rider the Liliana at this point, you're dropping yourself down another 2 life when you're on 4, just accelerating the clock that your own Spawn of Mayhem will finish the job here on the series. I don't know if that's what Sasani might be going for here, just as a way to make a memorable experience for all those watching. I wouldn't put it past them.
Sadly, their team lost round 1, so really got to throw everything in, every access in, and go, no, this is our game. We gave you game 1. We let you take that win. We're gonna take the rest of these guys. Don't worry.
So Murderous Rider and Growth Chamber Guardian will get in the way of the Brontodon and the Zombie. We know the Liliana is down to just 1 loyalty counter at this point, so a shadow of her former self. I'm just kind of looking through this and trying to think, is there a world in which Arthur JP turns this game around and gets to go to game 3?
So it leans on Murderous Rider not dying. It leads on Murderous Rider killing Murderous Rider not dying. Pretty good. Okay. I'm playing with Sasani now invisible because I'm trying to think of every possible option. I'm just assuming all they do is they draw lands. No, I can't come up with a sequence. I can't for the life of me come up with a sequence of draws that keeps them in this to a reasonable degree. This Spawn of Mayhem is only going to kill them because they can attack for 6, and then they have to kill their own Spawn of Mayhem. Oh, okay, yeah, play the Murderous Rider. Because they have to kill their Spawn of Mayhem here, or they die next turn.
Wait, okay. So this might change things. The Great Henge has got the life gain ability, so at least you won't die to your own creature immediately. Murderous Rider has got... You mentioned Murderous Rider has a life link for Sasani. There's also a Murderous Rider for Arthur JP.
So you just hardcast Murderous Rider, and Cry kills 2, but doesn't quite work because Cry's sorcery, if it was instant, it would at least potentially save them.
Alright, it's going to be the Murderous Rider. That is going to be the Great Henge use, so Murderous Rider will come in with the one token, as well as that extra life coming from just using the Great Henge. That's 3 life linking, 2 life from the Great Henge. I don't know, Swan, I'm starting to believe here. I'm starting to believe that maybe, just maybe... It's not a strong belief. But
I mean, you can't. You have to attack with this, but you can't attack with the Spawn. But you need to attack with the Spawn, but you can't attack with the Spawn because you need to kill them. This is next turn lethal, so you have to attack. But if you don't attack, if you attack, you die.
They don't attack.
They don't attack because they don't want to die. I like at least not dying. I like not dying.
Hey, who's your best friend? It's the Cauldron Familiar. Coming to the field and making everything irrelevant. As everything is thrown up into the face of Arthur JP. So we will have some good blocks coming through. So that's going to be 4 damage, 3 coming through as the heal.
I mean,
as the witch... Oh, of course, no, of course. It will
of course.
It's going to get sacked.
Yeah, this gets sacked. Thrashing Bronstodon also gets sacked to kill the Great Henge, so there's no more life-gaining shenanigans as well. Or not.
It's necessary.
I'll just keep saying stuff and then it doesn't matter because he's already dead.
Well, there we go. Officially, we have tied things up between the USA and the UK with a pretty definitive win for Saseni there with the Jund sacrifice. That was pretty heinous. I mean, for Arthur JP, it felt like they didn't really get out of the blocks there at all.
No, I mean, there was some definitely stumbles happened from Arthur, sadly. Lots of mulliganing decisions. They had to make there, which is very unfortunate. We wanted this to kind of... You don't want to have that. You wanted the players to be obviously just kind of all talking, having a fun. Everybody keeps 7 at every point. It happens. That's magic. But Sasani just played flawlessly, frankly. And I mean, when you have a good player with a good deck, it's not surprising it's a definitive win sometimes.
So that means going into our 3rd series today, it'll be 1 series apiece. So the last one to decide it all. Swan, could you tease us a little bit with what we're going to be having after the break? Dragonfly versus JDAP in our last series of the day.
So we've got arguably the best deck of the format facing off against the deck that I think, with the correct sideboard configuration, has the best chance against it.
Ooh, I like it. We'll leave
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys a little bit of mystery for our third series. We're going to a short break while the players do get set up. So do stick with us. Our last series of the day, again, for any of you guys watching from the UK, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled competition for the next 4 weeks following this broadcast. And on the American side as well, there'll be Magic the Gathering Arena broadcast starting over there. So do make sure you stay ahead of that. But for now, we'll catch you guys in a few minutes' time for our last series of the day. Welcome back, everyone, to the new Magic the Gathering Arena Campus Battles show match. My name is Canifit, joined by Masked One, as we get into our final series of the day. It's one series apiece between the UK and the US. And Swan, this is the third series that you said you were most excited about.
Yeah, this is honestly like the match I'm excited to watch. This is a match I'm expecting to also see a few times when we go actually for our own personal playoffs. This is going to be a match that we're going to see across lots of games, across Magic. You'll see on the ladder. You'll see this in competitive play. You'll see this on all over the place. And this is blue-white control versus black-red sacrifice. Two of arguably the best decks in the format at the moment.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing Dragonfly on that blue-white Azorius control. JDAP on the Rakdos Sacrifice, the last series of our show match between the US and the UK. One series apiece. This will decide which is the better country. It will be definitive by the end of this series.
Bold statement. I like it. I mean, I've worked in both countries, so I'm not going to be biased, even though I am a Brit. I'm just going to keep that very unbiased point of view. I also don't think there's a favourite going into this match. I think this is actually a very skill-intensive matchup from both of the teams. So hopefully their best players or all of the team members from both of them are all talking together. All of them are around one computer going for it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes absolute sense to do so. This is very much a team event, as much as we have in our regular seasons. We have the teams all playing individually. This is the opportunity to bring all your brains together as the opening hands. For JDAP, they've got the Cauldron Familiar and a Priest of the Forgotten Gods as their early plays. On the other side of things, we have got Narset, Parter of Veils, and of course the huge removal for later on, Elspeth Conquers Death, to take out pretty much anything you like.
Yeah, the turn 1 Cauldron Familiar is just arguably the most important thing for the Sacrifice deck. The Rakdos deck really needs early aggressive Cauldron Familiar. Such a hard card for the blue-white decks to really play around.
So we've got turn 3 coming up with another Cauldron Familiar available. Of course, the big thing about the Azorius control deck with the Priest able to knock out creatures is there aren't very many creatures going around.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of creatures, but they have a lot of very strong removal throughout their curve. Obviously, they can just kind of... This is a matchup where a good control player understands that they need to use their life as a resource here, that there is another resource that they have access to, and they just need to understand they're probably going to go to down to like 10 life, but then they're going to have lots of ways of dealing with Cauldron Familiars, Priest of Forgotten Waves, and just any other card that JDAP could potentially bring out.
So the 2 hits do come in. That's the third land. The Mayhem Devil comes down, as we have still not got too much of anything for Dragonfly. One of the cards I'm really excited to see come out, if Narset can find it, of course, is that Shatter the Sky.
Yeah, Shatter is just how this game can be completely changed on an act. Ooh.
There it is.
It's like you call it. If you do it again, I'm calling like Shazam or something. Like we need to get this. This is your superpower.
Well, I mean, this is the biggest disaster zone for the red-black deck, isn't it? You've got this combo set up. You got Priest, you got Cauldron Familiar, you got Mayhem Devil, and all of it is under 4 power. And we're just about to go to the 4 mana turn where it could all go away just like that.
Well, the only good thing is obviously that JDAP knows that the Shatter of the Sky is in hand. That's one of the luxuries. So he's deciding to go aggressive now, use the ability, get as much value as they can possibly now before anything else happens, because they happen to have a certain card in their hand.
Yeah, that Liliana coming out is the answer to getting out creatures and making them worth it. This is one of the worries we had about JDAP's deck, is they wouldn't have enough mana to get the Liliana out before their creatures got wiped, but the Priest got them that 2 mana extra they needed to get up to the 6 and put Liliana on the field.
Yeah, and this is a very important play-draw dependent thing. Imagine if JDAP was on the draw this matchup. Completely different. He gets to... Dragonfly gets to Shatter the Sky, wipe the whole board, and then what does JDAP do? They just kind of sit there with a Liliana in hand and go, well, I can't play this. I've got other cards I can play, but I really would wish I had this Liliana. Now it's totally different. Dragonfly couldn't respond to Liliana, had no counter magic, had to just kind of play the Narset the previous turn, and now has lost the Narset as well as just doesn't have a good response to this Liliana.
The Shasta of the Sky will come down anyway, just to get rid of that priest. That's 2 cards across the JDAP. Of course, what we know from the side of Dragonfly is they are 1 mana away, and they've got the mana in hand for Elspeth Conquers Death, an amazing answer to that Liliana out in the field.
It's definitely an interesting spot. Because you get to exile a permanent, it does still get to target that Liliana, but because they're able to just kind of throw so much more advantage, and now they can basically play a turn where they can throw everything out that they've got in their hand, continue applying pressure, and that's what they're doing. They're playing all the cards, and then Dragonfly has to respond to this Liliana, and if they don't, they're actually just going to lose.
So here comes land number 5, the decision. Do you play the Elspeth Conquers Death right now? It looks like the Liliana seems like it's too threatening, but you're right. It leaves a board of 3 different creatures up. I mean,
that's 6 damage.
Yeah, there's another Mayhem Devil as well, ready to rock.
Yeah, that it's so hard. This is why it's such an interesting matchup, because the red-black Rakdos Sacrifice is able to actually go play this underneath, over the top game versus Azorius Control. Whereas Azorius Control wants to basically play against it would much rather play against a consistent mono red deck that we already saw. That's why we've seen in Premier play, mono red decks have been able to lose to this blue white deck, because the blue white deck can actually just stamp out everything that they're trying to do. Whereas actually, the Rakdos deck is able to play this under-over game with Liliana, and that's how they're able to do this with Priest of the Forgotten Ways, lots of ways of getting continuous advantage as we wait for Dragonfly to decide where he wants to throw this.
So with the second Elspeth Conquers Death in hand, it looks like instead they're actually going to attack the field. But we know there's another Mayhem Devil coming. I don't know, this feels like we're already in desperation territory for Dragonfly here.
Yeah, I mean, I understand getting rid of the immediate damage, which does make sense. Try and keep as much life going as possible. You've got another Elspeth, it's fine. We're not going to take too much damage. We're going to go down to 7. But you're against a Conjurer Familiar deck. They have longevity built into them. They get you low enough, you're now at very threatening. Whoa, I love that. I love that. That's so smart. Just push damage.
Yeah, the Castle Embereth being used to pump up the creatures. Now it's still back up to 3 again. Could Dragonfly, representing the USA and the CSL, the deck looks like it could generally just be too slow here as the second part of Elspeth Conquers Death comes into play. Do we see the second enchantment coming down to get rid of Liliana? Or just the Narset instead? We're down to 5 life.
They're also threatening to just Liliana Emblem. Ultimate rather. Because Liliana's now at 9. She's got to hang around for so many turns. I think the Narset was trying to look for let me think. Would it be Birth of Melodies, maybe? No, that gets you a land. Omen of the Sea, that doesn't do anything here. I guess you have land, so you go land. Banishing Light. But then that does the exact same. Yeah, it was just kind of seeing what you had and see if they're going to still kill you.
Oh boy, wow, this got out of hand real quick in this game number 1. Bear in mind, guys, of course, we do still have a game 2 and a potential 3 as this third series looks like it's going to be pretty much done. So that Castle Embereth is again there to pump up the creatures. There's only 3 mana if you include our Fable Passage, and there's nothing coming back the other way from Dragonfly. Up at 20 life, down to 0 for Dragonfly. A perfect victory for JDAP.
Yeah, and that's why this is such an interesting matchup. Imagine if he doesn't have Priest there. Imagine if JDAP doesn't have Priest there, doesn't get to win that game in that fashion. Just completely becomes under, and the Azorius Control deck just gets to do exactly what it wants to do. But that just wasn't able to happen, and JDAP was able to take that win in somewhat convincing fashion.
All right, so diving into the sideboards for game number 2, as it looks like some of the top end is perhaps being trimmed out of JDAP's deck to try and make sure more happens early on. I think JDAP very much aware, as we were aware, how close that game was as the Agonizing Remorses and Angareth Rampages come in.
Yeah, these are the two key cards. I'd be surprised to see much else really come in. But Agonizing Remorse, just being able to look at the hand, there's zero downside. Losing 1 life against a control deck is just nothing. It's free. It's still free. Card literally says, pay 2 mana, look at their hand, lose 1 life. It's almost Thoughtseize, except it costs an extra mana, which is huge in the early turn. So it's not quite. It's close. It's good. It's very good against control decks. Gets out all their planeswalkers, enchantment removal, sorcery board wipes, which we saw, and also just counter magic in certain spots. So I love bringing that in. The Angareth Rampage is also the most important card to also be able to force opponents to sacrifice their creatures instead of targeting it. You just get to sacrifice it, but also getting rid of planeswalkers and just getting rid of either a Narset or a Teferi, just getting it off the board, not having to worry about it anymore. These are the 2 cards that you need in multiple different spots because they do so many different things.
All right, so with the sideboarding for Dragonfly going right now, it looks like they have thrown away some of their more expensive draw. We did see the Thirst for Meaning thrown away. And yes, the Aethergust coming in as a 4 of.
So again, I'm gonna disagree with the player. I don't. I'm gonna probably go 0 for 3 today as be going on. Aethergust just isn't hitting enough relevant cards. They've got Mayhem Devil, and you assume they probably play maybe some number of other cards. We know they've got Dreadhorde Butcher, which is not a typically common one, but I just don't think there's enough red cards. I think, to be honest, JDAP mostly won with black creatures. So bringing in a card that doesn't interact with a majority black deck that splashes for red, I just don't think that's going to be effective. I think that's going to hurt you more in a long run.
Let's take a look at these opening hands. So for JDAP, they have got a Dreadhorde Butcher we were talking about before, but they won't maybe get the chance to go in with it as the Temples on the other side. Let's see. So we've got the Birth of Meletis, and not a bad start. A double Shatter the Sky and Dawn of the Sea that was being brought in as slightly cheaper draw power, as we've seen how important the early game will be.
Yeah, and these early few turns almost always favor the black-red deck because that's what they're meant to be doing in this matchup. They're meant to always aggressively play, get an early advantage, and then have to figure it out from there.
So the Birth of Meletis didn't get to actually get played last time round, but very nice here to make sure that hand stays nice and healthy. Getting out an early blocker as well would be pretty nice to throw in the way of the Dreadhorde Butcher.
Yeah, it's actually really strong. This is why this card is seeing a lot more play. Just being able to put up a large 0-4 wall, it doesn't matter that it can do anything else. You're just really happy to, keep the lands coming on the early few turns, getting an aggressive wall, well, not aggressive, I guess defensive wall, and then gaining incidental life against a deck like this. It's really nice.
Well, the Butcher, this turn at least, gets to go in with the open field. That will no longer be the case. Does mean it gets to go up to 2-2. So if it gets nailed out here, it's going to be a little bit of an issue. Throwing that damage around as Teferi drops down to the field. It's starting to look a little bit more like Dragonfly territory as they burn through the 3 loyalty, throw the Dreadhorde Butcher from the field. That's all of its counters gone. And no more instants, if there were even any to be had.
Yeah, this is the slight problem that the Rakdos deck can have. If you have a slightly janky hand where it's not the perfect lands for the early few turns with creatures, it can become very awkward to actually play everything in an effective state. And that's what we're seeing right here. Obviously, we haven't seen the double Gutter Bones, but obviously that's not the Dreadhorde Butcher that the opponent knows that we have. So now you're down on card knowledge, information's more available, the opponent knows exactly what you're doing, and this is a blue-white player who normally doesn't get hand advantage or hand information. This is more information for them, which means they know what they can do with their Shatter the Sky, rather. It's not of the sky, it's just the sky.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Gutter Bones are going to be seeing the dirt pretty soon. If we get any more coming out here. We know that the Dreadhorde Butcher and Mayhem Devil are both available, so the Fable Passage will be the draw for JDAP. So the Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, who we didn't really get to see before, could potentially start to come out to get too many bodies on the field for that 0-4 to be able to block.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, JDAP is going to be able to kill the Teferi here. This just always happened, but obviously it's representing that Dragonfly obviously is representing that they have a lot of options open to them. JDAP is in a really weird spot here. They can... God, I'm now having to try and remember the exact text on the top of Fabled Passage. Okay, so they will have double red from this, which does give them access to the Chandra. But obviously they could play a Cauldron Familiar plus Dreadhorde Butcher, but I imagine if they're playing this and they're thinning their deck out slightly, even though they really want to play Liliana, yeah, that's why we're seeing this.
Yeah, the Chandra coming out. You're right, though. With that 4 mana left open, there was a decent chance that Dragonfly would have had something to say about the Chandra. Nonetheless, JDAP charges forward, has now got the 4 creatures to make sure that Teferi is taken out here. And of course, with the Mayhem Devil in hand, I'm sure we're going to be seeing him many more plays with eventual follow-up from Liliana.
Yeah, it's I think this was kind of a Hail Mary turn. In a weird way, it's hilarious to say turn 4 is Hail Mary for Rakdos. But the Chandra basically says, I can either stay in this game and I know where my direction of this game goes. It goes in the direction of Planeswalkers. You've probably got Shatter the Sky in your hand or basic cards. You don't have any counter magic. You 100% always counter Chandra, right? So I now know you don't have any counter magic, which means now I can accept this damage is happening. Teferi is gone. And now I'm playing the axis on the way you want to dictate the next 2 turns. Dragonfly is actually in a very, very precarious spot. I think they might have thought Shatter the Sky because of the way they keep hovering it. They could play at any time. Obviously, because of Teferi, they can. But now they don't actually have any counter magic, so it's becoming very frustrating for them to kind of stay in this game in the sense they want to stay into it. They want to have all the control and all the board power. They don't.
Well, that will be the possibility of another Shatter the Sky on the opposing turn because of the Teferi +1 or the Omen of the Sea, if not. But right now, that's a lot of land in Dragonfly's hand and not too much else. I think they're going to need to go a little deeper into their deck if they want to find what they're looking for.
So they've got a really, really kind of interesting decision. They either can go for the Shatter the Sky and keep their Teferi around for another turn, but only really killing the Chandra tokens and the Cauldron Familiar, or they can decide to go for the Omen and trying to draw Scry and then draw more cards potentially through that kind of avenue. I personally prefer the Omen. I think you just kind of give up on your Teferi if you can't get there. But it's very, very much a defining spot we're in. We're in a very critical point of the game right now.
Look, the decision has been made. Omen of the Sea will find Banshee Light and Aether Gust. The card that you had some big questions about coming to this one. As you said, there's not a lot for the Aether Gust to grab right now, unless you're going off the Chandra. The Banshee Light will be the pick. Certainly a good spot removal to take the Chandra off, and it will mean that presumably Teferi will get to see another turn.
Potentially. Obviously, there are still 2 more Chandras, I believe. There are still 2 more Chandras in JDAP's deck, as well as obviously playing Dreadhorde Butcher, which obviously can ping this Teferi down for an extra 1. It's definitely a spot where neither player feels like they're in control. There's definitely still a lot to play for at the moment.
So we can see that there's only really land left available as the Cauldron Familiar will go in to get a little bit of pecking damage on Teferi, keep them from working up to having another -3 down the line. This does mean, of course, that JDAP's got a pretty good board as Teferi ticks up for 1. The Dream Trawler draw, yes, that is huge, and what Dragonfly was waiting for.
Okay, so this is a spot where I like to be aggressive and I like just slamming my cards sometimes. Even as a control deck, I like to just slam my cards. I can't be very controlling right now. I have instant speed board wipe, but that's all I have. Okay? Or I can try and gain a lot more advantage through Dream Trawler. Yes! Yes, somebody agrees with me for once!
Dreamcaller comes down. It's going to have the hexproof. It's going to have the lifelink and extra damage through in the air. This is a big question posed to JDAP. What do they do about this? Their hand right now, not quite accepting, only on 4 mana. The Dreadhorde Butcher can't get through. The Mayhem Devil has nothing which is going to get sacrificed. This could be a little bit shaky here.
So players that aren't 100% familiar, Dream Trawler is a 6 mana 3/5, which doesn't normally sound very good, but it has flying and lifelink, and it's that lifelink that actually makes it very strong. It also has the ability where you can just discard a card from your hand. Arguably, Dragonfly has 2 cards he's fine with discarding from his hand, which means he can give it double hexproof, which means it's so hard for JDAP to ever kill this creature.
It looks like instead of trying to kill it, it's just going to try and bully past it with 3 different creatures to take the Teferi down. And of course, can only block 1. There's no mana for that Shatter the Sky this time around. And in fact, we don't think we're going to be seeing that too soon with the Dream Trawler, of course, being a victim of that as well.
Yeah, this is just a spot that Dragonfly is just very, very happy to be in. They're like, that's fine, we'll kill your Teferi. You can draw a card. I'm fine with you drawing a card. I'm going to draw far more cards than you. I'm going to gain a lot of life. It means I'm winning the axis on basically everything. I'm fine. You can get your Gutter Bones back over the next few turns. That's fine as well. I'll happily put cards in your graveyard. That's fine. You can damage. You can do anything. I'm winning this game now. In every avenue, I'm winning this game. It's fine. I can lose my Teferi. It doesn't matter. My Teferi had already prevented you from dealing me so much damage over the last few turns.
We do have the draws coming in for the Midnight Reaper thanks to the Butcher, who the second one of which will go up to a 2/2, but the Dream Trawler with the draw now up to 4/5 as Elspeth Conquers Death comes in. What a lovely card to have right now, and the Absorb draw as well off the Dream Trawler. This monster is ridiculous.
So attack for 5, gain 5, draw a card. Get Liliana Conquers Death or keep the Absorb up. I kind of like keeping Absorb, but you don't even need to play around the idea of protect my creature. So I actually really like just playing the Elspeth because you've got the Hollowed Fountain to discard. You can just stay ahead of everything. What are you scared of now? What are you scared of? I don't think your opponent's going to kill you, and if they are going to kill you, you have ways of responding to it. It just doesn't seem like you can lose this.
The Field of Ruin, I think, being tempted to go after the Castle Lochthwain there for JDAP, one of their ways to draw themselves back into the game. As yeah, I think the door's starting to close, and the Dream Trawler is so very strong. Castle Lochthwain, number 2 is the draw. That is enough mana for Liliana, but we know there's an Absorb waiting for her if she comes down this turn.
I'm a little bit surprised we didn't go for the Elspeth. But I guess Liliana's the only way you lose this game. That's why you want to just keep up the Absorb. But the thing is, Elspeth that Conquers Death, I almost hope that we're wiping the board as Dragonfly over the next turn or two, because obviously we can just bring it back with Elspeth Conquers Death. And we're playing against a red-black deck, unless they have exactly Angrath's Rampage on the turn that we're looking to get it back. That's the only way we can reasonably think of losing this game. Which means we have the Absorb for that, which means we gain 3 life, it's fine, we just get to keep doing this whole sequence of turns again. But guess what? Because we brought it back with Elspeth, it's actually slightly bigger. So it basically means we only lose an attack, but then we get to wipe our opponent's whole board, which means we're horrendously ahead and they just can't stay in it. I hope you followed my weird journey through that.
Well, looking at what JDAP's got going on for them right now, which is definitely a lot more straightforward, they've got the chance to bring back the Gutter Bones here and bring out the Mayhem Devil. We've still got the Midnight Reaper as a way to draw out more cards. As the Devil, there's a temptation to drop the Absorb now. I think it's being put out as a potential sacrifice. There's definitely a thought from Dragonfly to go for this one, which would leave them open for the Liliana drop in a future turn.
Yeah, I think the only way you lose this game is to Liliana, right? So the idea is that the only way I can lose this game is Liliana, but even with Liliana, I still have Elspeth Conquers Death as a way of bringing back my Dream Trawler. So I don't even lose to Liliana. So what am I scared of? What am I scared of? What am I scared of as Dragonfly? Definitely not that murderous or the Mayhem Devil. So I would have let that resolve personally. I guess maybe they're just on the point of over the next 3 turns I'm going to kill them. So I'm just going to prevent as much damage as possible. I'm going to try and draw possible, improve my draws obviously with Omen, and just go from there.
Interesting. Oh, of course, the Embereth is the one that's taken out with the Field of Ruin. So that's some of the ability for JDAP to force through the damage with the 4 creatures they've got on the field right now. We will see replacement land coming in from both sides of the equation. So we know at least there's enough land for JDAP to go through, but importantly, as we said before, there's a no counter spell for Liliana when she comes down, but Elspeth Conquers Death will do a pretty good job the turn after.
Okay, so this is going to be a spot where Aethergust is actually going to be fun. I'm like 0 for 4 now. I got one thing right. So I'm 1 for 4. Because obviously this Aethergust being able to throw back this Butcher, it's actually really nice. But we are sitting at 28 life, so does it even matter?
I'm not sure too much matters anymore. It's looking like the 3rd series of our battle across the pond is almost to 1 game apiece. I mean, this is what we want. You know, you get to the 3rd series with 1 series apiece. You go into the 3rd series, you want to get to that 3rd game with 1 game apiece as well.
Oh, 100%. We do have to see Dragonfly go through the actions. They did potentially make a questionable decision when they did decide to counter the Mayhem Devil. Obviously, the only card they know they lose to is Liliana. Potentially also Angrath's Rampage, which I hinted to earlier. These are the only 2 cards which are going to either kill my dream, which are going to kill my Dream Trawler, or destroy it rather. I need to basically play around only those 2 cards, which means when they use the Absorb on the Mayhem Devil, they did give an opening, which potentially might give JDAP the opportunity to still stay in this game.
Elspeth Conquers Death. That's another big play coming out from Dragonfly and another answer to the Liliana. This is an exile effect, so that's going to get rid of the Reaper and make sure there's no draws coming. Of course, we know there's another way to turn those creatures into draw, and that is getting the Liliana out on the board.
Yeah, so obviously the only other way around it is kind of letting Elspeth Conquers Death get to 3 and obviously not being able to reanimate something. The only kind of slight problem is return a creature card or Planeswalker card from your graveyard. So obviously Dragonfly is still able to get back that Teferi, so there are still relevant targets. But obviously letting this Dream Trawler stay on the battlefield or potentially being able to unsummon it, which I don't believe JDAP can do, is an option. Though this is a really frustrating spot for obviously JDAP to be in.
So Liliana comes down. What's it going to be? Will we see the sacrifice to get rid of the Dreamcaller? We will. So Elspeth and the counterspell, the 2 answers to Liliana, have already been burned through. It's going to be a little while before the Conquer's Death brings back the Dream Trawler, and that's a double draw coming in to end out JDAP's turn.
Yeah, this is really nice though for Dragonfly. I questioned why they brought in the Aethergust. Apparently for exactly Dreadhorde Butcher, which they didn't see in game 1. That's exactly the spot that it's worked itself into. An end of turn. Yeah, go on, make me wrong. Do it.
Hey, well, you know, these guys, they're on the next level thinking.
I mean, they're winning, and I'm not winning.
Well, it's sadly not to the graveyard, to the top, or indeed perhaps the bottom of the deck. They've got a decision point here, because we know the Midnight Reaper is in hand. Does JDAP want to draw the Dreadhorde at this point, knowing that they'll have to try and build it up once again with those 1/1s? Looks like the answer is yes. We are now on expensive territory for JDAP to have to pay 2 more for their non-creatures. We can see they don't have too much in that regard, but Archon of Sun's Grace, that life total for Dragonfly has looked extremely healthy for a long time. I don't think that's about to change. Swamp comes down. Midnight Reaper, as it looks like we'll just be throwing out the zombie token. Archon is big enough to put Liliana down in the next turn, as well as bring along some Pegasi buddies.
Yeah, the Pegasus is just obviously how this game ends now. I mean, obviously there is going to be the opportunity to just bring back the Dream Trawler over the next turn with Elspeth Conquers Death. But I mean, just win more, right? Because of Archon. Like, you just have everything, right? When you're the controlled player.
Yeah, it's looking real rough here. As I think Dreadhorde Butcher is literally going to be thrown forward for its on-death effect to allow for those Gutter Bones to come back in. Archon of Sun's Grace looks like it's not even going to block it, maybe suspecting some sort of trickery. Instead, it was merely a desperation move.
Yeah, I mean, Dragonfly is working with a lot of health here, obviously. All the creatures have lifelink, obviously Dream Trawler and also the Archon just having lifelink. It's like I can take 5 damage because I'm gonna gain 3 back later, so it just doesn't matter.
So there we go. Gutterbones could be put into play here. The Castle Lock Throne, we haven't actually yet, I believe, had a chance to see it brought into play as the Midnight Reaper is being put down. Of course, we're expecting the Dream Trawler back next time to keep those life links going. I think at least, yes, we're going to be getting the Gutterbones coming back to hand with just enough mana left to throw out on the field.
It's always weird trying to figure out the sequencing of going, do I have enough mana for this one? Count an extra 1, and I'll just set this up at the end of my opponent's turn.
Oh boy, look at that scry! Absorb and shatter the skies. I mean, come on, really. The shatter's actually going to be sent away, I think, presumably because of the soon-to-be arrival of the Dream Trawler. So you don't necessarily want to wipe the field when you're this far in advance. Going up to 4-6 after the draw.
Yeah, you just don't need it. I mean, the Archon alone is going to be able to hit for 3. Obviously, whenever you play enchantments, or whenever you play when they enter the battlefield, there is a difference. You get 2/2s, which just against a guy that against a player or a deck rather in JDAP's sense who is trying to go very wide. It's actually very efficient when you can go just as wide with your enchantments.
So Liliana is kind of building up towards potentially getting the sacrifice effect off again, but yeah, I don't think they get enough time to do that. Another zombie will be coming out to the field. The draw of the swamp. The Castle Lock Thwains from the side of JDAP, realistic possibilities here as it's going in with everything. Woo! Gotta get that compound somehow.
This is do or die. I mean, part of the problem is that they know there's lethal on board and they can't do anything about it. And I mean, Dragonfly doesn't need to block. Why lose the opportunity of having lethal when you can just not, and you can just make sure you win.
All right, you emptied your hand. You're gonna go for it all. Lock Thwain into Lock Thwain. Yes, that's what we like to see. If you're a fan from the UK, I think you've got to bring out the Gutterbones, though. It's the final act of defiance, as it looks like we are very much set up for a third game of our third series. We've still yet to find out which country is the best. From what you've seen so far, Swan, as this game, pretty much a formality at this point, we've had game 1 and game 2 to kind of try and get a read on these players. Game 3, who are you feeling to take the series?
Well, because JDAP is going to be on the play, I'm actually going to give the edge there to JDAP playing the Rakdos Sacrifice. And the reason is, I think play draw is very important. We saw the opportunity that JDAP had in that game 2. That game 1 rather, my bad. Playing the Priest of Forgotten Ways and being able to play a turn 4 or turn something 5, maybe Liliana, before obviously Dragonfly was able to do anything about it. And I think that play is going to be critical for this third and final game.
So first game at 20 life to 0 in favor of JDAP. Second game, very much flipping things around the other side as we get to have a chance to check in on what JDAP's going to be changing, if anything, for game number 3. Everything went so very wrong. They started to get a little bit going towards the end, but it never really came together.
Yeah. So I don't hate how they sideboarded, but I don't love how they sideboarded. I personally would take out all of these Dreadhorde Butchers and play my Chandra, Angrath's Rampage, Agonizing, Renaissance, is that the card's name? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, Agonizing
Agonizing Remorse, rather.
Yes, the hand
I'm seeing
hitting
it from a
card.
tiny bit of text there, so I'm trying to remember. And the Cauldron Familiar. Take out all of the Dreadhorde Butchers and bring in one of each of the cards I just said, or potentially the other Liliana. I just don't think Butcher has done anything impressive at all in the matchups. I mean, game one, it was good as just a tempo 2-drop, but outside of that, it didn't seem to be particularly impressive.
So something I noticed from, because we can see both of the players sideboarding going on, is that Dragonfly actually siding out all but one of their Teferis. I think some respect towards that Butcher's ability to get in and deal with the Planeswalkers, with these early plays.
Yeah, but they're still keeping in the Ether Gust, which is another reason why I like siding out all of the Dreadhorde Butchers, because then you know that basically Dragonfly is playing with 4 cards which don't do anything in their deck.
It's
Basically,
a bold choice for sure. Let's take a look at these opening hands just a second. We got we've got Castle Lockstone Swamp. Some good early plays here for JDAP. On the other side for Dragonfly, they've got a decent start as well. The Meletis we saw worked extremely well in game 2.
Yeah, this is, though, the kind of draw that JDAP has always wanted to have. He's just had very frustrating openers where he's had to play kind of things off of tempo. This isn't going to be a problem for them in this game. They're going to be able to be very aggressive, really keep control of this game going in the early few turns. And if they can find a red source, it's going to be very beneficial for them.
Yeah, that Mayhem Devil is waiting, as they have got a choice here, the Agonizing Remorse or the Oven combo. It looks like it will be going straight for the Oven, along with the Familiar. Really, really strong start to put the pressure on.
So I really like doing this because of Dovin's Veto. You just know that card's a thing in their deck. Potentially other counter magic that they might play in their sideboard. We do know that they can go up to an additional 2. I think it's super, super important to get this kind of stuff online as fast as possible, so you don't have to worry about it in the later few turns.
All right, so we've got the Cerulean Drake coming in there. Talking about your red cards, get some protection from red up in the air.
Again, this isn't a deck that plays a lot of red, so I'm a bit surprised that pro-red card is good. I mean, its ability, though, to counter a target spell that targets you is actually surprisingly relevant, whereas if the opponent chooses to use something like Angrath's Rampage, it directly counters that, because you have to target the player, and then you, the player, sacrifice that card as opposed to the other way around.
So Cauldron Familiar and Gutter Bones going in, as we don't see that red mana you were hoping for JDAP. It will force the use of the Agonizing Remorse to go into the hand, and Cerulean Drake, though, sacks itself to make sure it doesn't happen.
I mean, you're kind of okay with this. JDAP just had the worst draw in his deck, so there's that going for them. The only thing they do have going for them, obviously, is this Cauldron Familiar Gutter Bones. They can just always be pushing for more and more damage.
Unless they get Banishing Lighted, which is exactly what is going to happen here. Oh boy, this is looking a little rough for JDAP if their next draw doesn't manage to fix the situation. The Banishing Light doing work, and we know there's a lot of good stuff in Dragonfly's hand over these next few turns.
Yeah, it's going to be really important for hopefully JDAP, weirdly enough, to see 3 lands in a row. Okay, that's land number 1.
There we go, Fabled Passage. That's going to get you your land. As Familiar and Gutterbones swing in down to 9 health. Oh boy, I mean, at this point, I'm trying to to think what happens if there happened to be a Shatter the Sky ready to go on turn 4.
I mean, I think JDAP just has to go for it regardless. This is kind of a turn where you just kind of look at the control player and go, well, you're tapped out, and you've tapped out the last 2 turns in a row to play your Drake plus the Banishing Light. If you happen to also have the full game, the Wrath removal, rather. God, I was getting there eventually. That's it. That's game. I concede. My aggression wasn't good enough. But as we know, Dragonfly doesn't have it, so it's going to be an interesting next few turns.
What they do have is a series of interesting options here. The Archon of the Sun's Grace, we saw how much life you got out of that one last time round. They've definitely got the 4 land. They need to be able to play pretty much anything in their hand, but is it going to be the Archon or maybe Banshee Light? The Birth of Meletis would get them another Plains, but not going to work necessarily fast as you need to.
I'm more interested to see where Dragonfly takes this. I'm not super familiar playing this kind of exact spot. I like the Archon because obviously the flying and the lifelink I think is super relevant to potentially prevent more damage coming through. And because JDAP doesn't actually have any removal, it's actually really good. But obviously this is a spot where if JDAP had any form of removal, such as the Angus Rampage, or just Midnight Reapers. So obviously he can gain the life, then lose the life, but then you just gain more card advantage, and that's an important thing. Just being able to gain that advantage and just keep going. That's an interesting draw, though.
Yeah, it's a second Cauldron Familiar off the Castle Lochthwain draw. The question now becomes, if you can get the last bit of damage in, but the lifelink on the Archon of Sun's Grace now going to be joined by a Pegasus Buddy, thanks to the birth of Meletis, who's going to get another card as well. It's Dragonfly's deck starting to really come online as the Banishing Light is the follow-up. Another enchantment, more Pegasus, and a lot less Mayhem Devil.
Yeah, he needed to be able to make 2 2/2s here, because obviously if JDAP was able to hit a land here, it would have been all over for the Archon and his 2/2 buddy, because obviously you can just sacrifice the 2 Cauldron Familiars. That's fine. They trigger. You lose some life. I get rid of your creatures, and then I get to attack you for 2 with the Cauldron with the Gutter Bones. But now this is in a spot where Dragonfly has secured the board state, kind of stabilized on a healthy life total, and there's one less Witch's Oven in the deck for JDAP moving forward. So it's going to be definitely a slightly more uphill battle. And any enchantment also equals a 2/2, which negates the effectiveness that Liliana does offer.
Dreadhorde Butcher and Gutterbones look like they are going to be put to task, throwing themselves into the line of fire. Liliana sitting in hand this whole game long, not getting that 6th land to be able to play her out and make this board into at least some extra cards. It feels like we're so close to the turning point for Dragonfly to just put this game again beyond any reasonable chance of recovery.
Yeah, I mean this is why Archon of the Sun's Grace is just such a powerful card. The ability to not only just have lifelink and flying, which is very nice, obviously evasion built in and life gain is very effective. Just being able to just continuously have more and more creatures just allows you to keep going.
That is 5 up in the air, and all that lifelink, all that good stuff. Castle Vantress, we know, is there for Dragonfly to search for the deck, but huge draw for JDAP. They finally get that 6th land. They can finally turn these creatures into cards.
But it might be just a turn too late. It's gonna be super important this next few turns for JDAP if they're going to be able to stay in this, or it's going to be a little bit too late.
Swinging in, of course, there's only the 0/4 to block, so no creatures going to die here, but at least a little bit of damage through to Dragonfly's life total. Gonna try and keep that life down somehow. But of course, Castle Ardenvale, we haven't even noticed that one, will throw the 1/1 in the way.
Yeah, and I mean, this was kind of good for JDAP to know, because now he knows his Liliana isn't getting countered. But at that same sense, he's now not actually gaining any pressure. And because obviously Castle making a 1/1, he's not even losing any other creatures or anything. It's definitely now an uphill battle, and it's just incredible, right? How quickly this game turned on an axis. The second Archon was able to come down, and then just 2 enchantments along with it the next.
I mean, that's been the big change with Theros Beyond Death, of course, bringing in so many different effects as enchantments, which means there's such great flexibility. For Liliana, the question is she going to make the zombie or make the big commit in and still, to sacrifice the 2 creatures and still miss the Archon? It looks like it will be the case. It's 2 card draws, but a short stay in the sun for Liliana with lethal for her on the board.
Yeah, the only consolation obviously Liliana does offer is more cards, but those weren't really the cards that JDAP was looking for here.
No, the Cauldron Familiars and Gutterbones sitting in the graveyard, waiting for some food. Only Midnight Reaper. As the Liliana hits the dirt in hand, we can see we've got the Absorb ready for Dragonfly. We're in such a low resource state here for JDAP that absorb, I think it's going to be backbreaking.
Yeah, normally when the control deck is able to get a even board state or a board state where they're ahead, they've got the Archon, they've got more lands, they have more resource open to them, they've got both their castles open, and then they've got counter magic for any scary threat now. This Midnight Reaper's not a scary threat. It's probably going to get resolved because the damage race is always in Dragonfly's advantage. They always are ahead in the damage race, so they never have to worry about that.
Midnight Reaper will not get absorbed as the hand is empty. I like the play from Jade up there to make sure they just tap down that black mana, trying to give the representation, at least there's some sort of shenanigans going on in the hand right now. Playing out the swamp, the castle locked away, and of course, we'll be able to get them a card later on, but no chance to play it. So Reaper versus Archon, and of course, Arden Vale, as many 1/1s as you please.
Yeah, these 1/1s are going to start to become very, very frustrating for JDAP to ever really fight through. They're very good at obviously trading with the Cauldron Familiars and the Gutter Bones, but in that same sense, there's also the pressure of the Archon in the air, so it's very, very hard for JDAP to ever really kind of figure out the new avenue in this game. Though there are obviously opportunities in all games open to them.
There's another hit with the lifelink up in the air and a Fable Passage to follow up as well to dig for the deck. You did note that Aethergust before, not going to get a lot to do here, but fortunately for Dragonfly, will not be required at this juncture.
Yeah, this is a spot where they're so far ahead on the game in both the board but also in card advantage that it's kind of negligible. They can kind of just be like, it's fine. We can let you draw everything. Whoa.
Now it's live. Aggress Rampage and Dreadhorde Butcher. Not ideal when your opponent is able to put out as many 1/1s as they please. Not going to be able to get a good sacrifice on that. Dreadhorde Butcher. Oh man, it's actually more of a liability here than it is a card to play.
I mean, you play it. They ask you, do you want it to the bottom of your deck, and you go, yes, please, sir. I would like to put it to the bottom of my deck. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy about this. And I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Would you like this to the bottom of your deck? Yes, I would.
Declined. All right. So, Midnight Reaper, what do you do here? I mean, we're getting very dangerously close to JDAP just being dead purely off of being horsed in the face over and over again. Not any buddies left over right now. There's very little left for Dragonfly, but they're going to be able to scry again with a Castle Vantress if they want to, and find that extra bit of action.
But they've still got the Absorb, which is the biggest problem. Like, JDAP has to assume there's hard counter magic. That's the saddest thing for them to be aware of. There's always counter magic there, meaning it's very difficult to ever know if anything really, really important, like that second Liliana, is ever going to resolve.
Blood Crypt gonna come down tapped. Of course, you can't really afford to even throw away some of that life, and no good targets for the Angrath Rampage, I assume probably for quite some time. We've got the Dovin's Veto coming to hand. That's now double counterspell for Dragonfly, who's looking more and more comfortable by the second, up at a nice round 20 life with JDAP down in single digits.
Yeah, I mean, Dragonfly just has to look at this and go, okay, I have you dead in 3 turns. From now, I have you dead. Okay, so I'm just going to, just keep myself in the most healthy spot. I'm going to be aggressive. I want to end this game fast, but also I have full control over this game. I don't know if attacking with both of the 1/1s there was really necessary. I think just basically making sure your opponent doesn't have any form of room to open the door. But you're at 23 life and your opponent's at 4 and you're presenting lethal next turn. What can go wrong?
Well, I don't think that Angrath Rampage. I mean, I guess you've just got to play it at some point, don't you?
Yeah, it's sorcery, so you can't even do it in your opponent's turn, sadly.
I mean, short of all of the Castle Ardenvale 1/1s coming down, it would have been a really nice answer to the Archon, but right now, yeah, it's worth a 1/1. We know the Blood Crypts in hand, no way for the Cauldron Familiars to get back to the field. I guess you're just trying to empty out, leave your guys up, and maybe hope Castle Lockswain gets you something?
I don't know. Maybe you can recall Counterfeit. Did JDAP bring in Epic Downfall? I don't think they did, personally.
I don't remember them doing so, but I'm more than happy to be wrong on that one.
So I think so. Obviously, Epic Downfall is one of the few cards that is exile to both the Archon and the Dream Trawler, but it's also Dream Trawler. Trawler? Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also a 2-drop, so it would have been probably one of the few cards, and I'm just trying to think of all the small cards, interactions that potentially could have got JDAP back into this game.
No, that's fair enough, and there's no guarantee from JDAP's side of things that that's a absorb in hand. In fact, it's 2 absorbs in hand, because you can say, when you look across on the other side of the table and say, do you have an absorb? And they're like, no, I don't have an absorb. They could be telling you the truth.
Both of them. Do you have 2 of the cards you need? No. Well, I do. Do you have a third one so you can get through both of the ones where I say no?
Oof. There we go. Castle Locthwain draws last bit of damage. Finish the job. Swan, it has been decided for now the US of A is apparently the superior Magic the Gathering country, but this will not be the only time we will contest that status. This is literally only just the first time this whole idea is going to be coming together. While the USA takes this one, down the line, hopefully, we're going to be bringing together many more US and UK competitions to really make it definitive.
Oh yeah, 100%. We now need to run it back because I mean, we lost. We're the British commentators, so obviously we're not biased, but we definitely think there should be more opportunities open to both teams to play more games. But those were some very fun games, and that final match against Dragonfly and JDAP did not disappoint at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. I'm so glad it went to game number 3, but I mean, at the end, you just saw the power of the Azorius. It did feel like there were windows for JDAP to get their way back into it, but I mean, we saw, from the very first game how, you have the deck kind of come together in the way you just get that right amount of mana at the right time to get the Liliana out. Suddenly, everything's gravy. But when that doesn't happen, what are you going to do?
Yeah, there was definitely a few also frustrating draws for JDAP in that third game as well. Not getting the Liliana online as fast as possible. Obviously, the Angrass Rampage coming a few turns too late. But we also just saw the Archon just kind of come down, not die for a turn. We just saw Dragonfly go, well, I've got to play it on turn 4. So just played on turn 4, tapped out, played Archon, and was like, if you have a removal spell, I lose the game. The question was, it didn't. There was no answer to it. So the Archon basically got to overtake the game, even though 2 turns later Liliana came down, but it was a bit too late. And that was basically a deciding factor. Both players just shrugged their shoulders, looked at each other for a few turns, but Dragonfly was able to get there and close it out.
Well, guys, so with the win going over to the Collegiate Star League from the US of A, the NUEL will have to take this loss this time. Of course, for any of our UK fans, if you want to check out the Collegiate Star League, who will also be doing Magic, much as we will be doing from the coming weeks, you can find them at twitch.tv/C Star League. That's C Star League over on Twitch. Again, we'll be bringing our regularly scheduled Magic competitions starting next week, bringing the end to our inaugural season of Magic the Gathering here in the UK, which will culminate in the live event as well. There's lots of stuff happening over on the Star League side of things. Again, thank you guys so much for coming and spending this evening, or I guess afternoon, depending on where you are, with us. We will have plenty more action coming to you. Again, we're not completely done with the UK-US question on Magic the Gathering, but for this time, it goes across the US of A. Thank you so much to everyone who made this possible, and of course, all the production team who've managed to keep things going behind the scenes. I've been Counterfeit, he's been Mars Swan, and we'll see you again soon.